Thank you. For those who are not able to observe now, this meeting is being recorded and can be accessed for later viewing on the PGCPS YouTube channel. Lastly, for recording purposes, I would also like to remind all board members to turn on their microphone when speaking. Board Member Vice Chair Lolita, please lead us in board prayer and pledge of allegiance.
O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance. Steer us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Amen. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Adeline, please call the roll.
Mrs. Adam Stafford.
Here.
Ms. Booth Strother.
Present.
Mr. Breeks.
Present. Present.
Mr. Saron Luis.
Here.
Mr. Fields.
Present.
Dr. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Jackson. Mrs. LaSalle Frazier.
Present.
Dr. J. Miller. Dr. Z. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Murray.
Present.
Mr. Valentine.
Here.
Ms. Walker.
Here.
Mrs. McMurray.
Here, thank you. Colleagues, may I have a motion to adopt the May 11, 2023 board meeting agenda?
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to accept the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Madam Chair.
Excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry. Board Member Adam Stafford.
Thank you. I was asking if we could pull item 7.1 for discussion, and that's on, oh, I'm sorry, that's on the second. I was confused there. Thank you.
Okay, so we're not pulling it. Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, minutes, agenda approved. Approval of the meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the April 27, 2023 board meeting minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second? It has been moved and seconded to approve the April 27, 2023 board meeting minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and the minutes are adopted. Thank you. We will now have the news break. Keeping an eye on the environment.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, sir. I'm Mr. Richard, your captain for this trip. We have just one simple rule. Stay in your seat during the trip until I tell you it's safe to get off the boat.
Last time I was here, we went canoeing. This time we went on a boat ride, and we actually got to see the wildlife firsthand because we got much more closer into their habitat. The turtles that were sunbathing, I had not seen that before last time I was here, so it was pretty cute to see.
Over hundreds of turtles, and then we did see osprey, and we saw a lot of other wildlife. I mean, this event in particular is kind of the culminating point of this school year in terms of everything that all these schools have accomplished. You have multiple clubs doing composting, multiple schools and clubs doing recycling, and this is a day that we can celebrate those accomplishments and explore new things in the environmental realm.
Sort of everything's been leading up to this day. So me and Nathan started the Student Environmental Coalition, meant to bring together students in different Prince George's County schools that care about the environment. So this was a day where everybody from those schools interested in the environment can come together and really talk to each other about what they care about and learn from people who really know about this field. So it's really exciting.
This is called a flat, also called a 1020 because it's 10 inches by 20 inches.
So we have a service project here where they're engaged in plantings that will go out throughout the county to support park programming. So we want them to see that they have a direct hand in preserving nature.
I've only participated in 2 activities thus far, but I would have to say the learning about the native plants and actually planting, because they are very important for our ecosystems. Rather than lawn grass, having these native grasses and native plants help restore carbon into the soil, which prevent it from spreading in the atmosphere. So it's really important.
What's impressed me the most is the students, just like how the students are so engaged, so passionate about the environment, and how many of the students are taking more of a leadership role to try and, bring things back to their schools and see what they can do. I know one school is working on composting, so that's what's impressive to me, is how the students are going to take something away from this.
As I said, I was waiting for this field trip for a long time, and now today is the day of it. And we're out here in this nice weather and meeting these nice people from different schools. It feels very amazing.
Thank you to the communications team for providing this presentation, and thank you to our students for leading the message on protecting the environment, which we all can learn from. So thanks so very much. Appreciate it. Now I will turn it over to our Vice Chair, Vice Chair Walker, for the community shout-out.
Hello, colleagues. Our board member, it's on, but I'm standing. Okay, so our board member, Dr. Juanita Miller is unable to be here today, who was giving our community shout out, so we have prayers for her recovery, and I'm reading this in her stead. Colleagues, join me in giving these young cadets a round of applause. These students hail from various schools around the county, representing the different military branches of our junior ROTC program. This is the very first time that they have been together with just a few minutes of practice before entering the boardroom. Join me in recognizing this month's community shout-outs. We have Cadet Sergeant Major Naja K. Swan, Army; Cadet First Lieutenant Isabel N. Caldwell, Army; Cadet Major Edward Cardona, Air Force; Cadet First Lieutenant Tunin Pinto, Air Force; Cadet Lieutenant Junior Grade Merville G. Dizo, Navy Marines; Cadet Master Chief Petty Officer Kalia Johnson, Navy Marines; Cadet Chief Petty Officer Abraham C. Ashade, Navy Marines; and Cadet Petty Officer First Class Jordan A. Williams, Navy Marines. This month, we acknowledge Memorial Day, a day set aside to honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. I was able to attend the JROTC Military Ball and was extremely impressed with their commitment and dedication to duty, honor, country. I felt it would be excellent to present them these colors tonight. Thank you to the parents for your continued support for your children and our future. Thank you to Dr. Jean Paul Cadet for leading the Department of Career and Technical Education, the CTE program, and Dr. Keith Hayes, CTE Instructional Supervisor. A special thank you to Colonel Licorice and Master Sergeant Bird for helping us to bring our community shout out to fruition. Always remember, we are one. Our children are first. We are PGCPS proud. And here's a 2-minute presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the presentation and the marching of the colors and remain standing to the duration of the playing of the national anthem.
Colors, march. Colors, vote. Carry. Colors. Ready, cut. Present. Colors. Carry. Colors. Ready, cut. Order. Colors. Ready, cut.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
Thank you so much for coming out. We appreciate you. Happy Memorial Day.
Thank you, Vice Chair Walker. 2.9, Report of the Chair. Last week, we had the honor of having little Zoe Smith, a promising student from the Excel Academy Public Charter School, who spoke to us about the renewal contract of her school. She mentioned how great the teachers at her school made her feel. It tells me that as a school system, we're doing something right. May 8th through May 12th, 2023 is dedicated to Teacher Appreciation Week. Our teachers deserve more than a week. They deserve a lifetime of appreciation. The great Chinese proverb says, "Give me a fish, and I eat for a day. Teach me to fish, and I eat for a lifetime." So as we start each day, let's continue celebrating, applauding, and supporting our teachers for their hard work, dedication, and commitment. Happy Teacher Appreciation to all Prince George's County Public Schools teachers. Let's give them. Thank you. Let's stop the stigma. Mental Health Awareness Month has been observed in the United States since 1949. Each May, the United States helps bring awareness to the tens of thousands of Americans living with mental health conditions. On behalf of the board, we stand with all Americans and encourage everyone to keep fighting to overcome these conditions. We support loved ones and the mental health professionals who assist every day. Know that you are not alone. Like the well-known fictional character Christopher Robin once said, "Promise me you'll always remember, you're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think." If you can't reach out to a parent, a sibling, a friend, a colleague, or teacher, or any adult, the following authorities are here to assist you. The crisis text line. Text HOME to 741-741. The Prince George's County Crisis Services, including the Mobile Crisis Team, 301-429-2185. The Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Call 988 or 211 or text your zip code to 898-211. Safe Schools Maryland Tip Line. Call 1-833-MDB-SAFE. Note that all these contacts can be found on the Prince George's County Public Schools website. Also, congratulations to the Stephen Decatur Middle School boys and girls soccer teams for their win. So let's give them a big hand. Thank you. At this time, we will have a moment of silence. I ask that you all join me in honoring the memory of the following Prince George's County staff, family, and community members with a moment of silence. Cartier Proctor, student, Crossland High School. Nevia Hopkins, student, Imagine Lincoln Public Charter School. Jennifer Espano Palma, student, Northwestern High School. Nia Monette Johnson, student, Oxon Hill High School. Carol Ann Hargis, Clerk 3, Food and Nutrition Services. Sherman L. Parker, Night Cleaner, Rosaryville Elementary School. Charmaine D. Segwick, Transportation Attendant, Surrattsville Bus Lot. May we pause? Thank you. Announcements. Upcoming meetings of the board are as follows. The Parent and Community Advisory Council, June 7th at 7 p.m. 2 board meetings, June 8th and June 22nd at 7 p.m. The Academic Achievement Committee, June 12th at 5:30 p.m. The Policy and Governance Committee, June 13th at 5 p.m. The Operations, Budget, and Fiscal Affairs Committee, June 14th at 5 p.m. Please please continue to check the board website for updates and more information about the upcoming board meetings. We will now hear from Dr. Golson with the report of the CFO. CFO, I'm sorry. CEO.
No problem. Thank you. Good evening. It is almost the end of the school year, and we have lots to celebrate. On May 1st, we held the first Systemic College and Career Decision Day. More than 3,000 high school seniors were celebrated as they announced their future plans. Students were welcomed into Bowie Baysox Stadium by Bowie State University cheerleaders and had opportunities to learn more about college and career options from representatives of local colleges, branches of the military, police, and emergency personnel. It was great to see so many students declare their post-secondary experience in either the military, workforce, college, and/or university of their choice. Thank you to our student member of the board, Alvaro Cerrone Ruiz, who served as like a master of ceremony. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Last week, we also renewed our partnership with the University of Maryland College of Education and the Center for Educational Innovation and Improvement. We are committed to working together to prepare a future cohort of high-quality teachers and leveraging research for school improvement. Let me once again offer congratulations again to the new Prince George's County Teacher of the Year, Mary Truman. Ms. Truman teaches students with autism at Kenmore Early Childhood Center. She will represent our county in the prestigious Maryland Teacher of the Year program. Congratulations are also in order for Fort Foote Elementary Principal Dr. Ryan Daniel and Robert Goddard Montessori teacher Karuna Scaraya, our finalists for the Washington Post Principal of the Year and Teacher of the Year awards, respectively. Graduation ceremonies for the class of 2023 kick off next week with the Academy of Health Sciences at Prince George's Community College on May 19th. Please visit the PGCPS website to check out stories and photos of our graduates, including a recap of College and Career Decision Day. Earlier today, we celebrated the culmination of a year-long project for students in career and technical education construction programs. The 46th Student-Built House happened today. Thank you to the students at Crossland High School, Bladensburg High School, and Northwestern High School, as well as the non-traditional high school in the north. 8 students were awarded nearly $6,000 in scholarships during the on-site dedication ceremony in Brandywine. The house is already sold for $625,000, and proceeds will support next year's project. And before the week ends, don't forget to thank an educator for Teacher Appreciation Week. Our educators give countless time and energy to inspire the next generation of learners. They do whatever it takes to get the job done, and I am proud to work alongside them. I would be remiss if I did not also extend my gratitude for the work of our school nurses and our pupil personnel workers, whose service was also recognized this week during commemorations. And lastly, thank you to all of the Board of Education members that attended one or more of the events that I just shared. It is always great to celebrate Prince George's County Public Schools at the end of the school year and to see the fruits of our labor. Thank you, and this concludes my report.
Thank you so much. We will now have Outcomes and Outputs Academic and Achievement Committee. I will now yield the floor to the Chair of the Academic and Achievement Committee, Board Member Dr. Zipporah Miller.
Good evening, and thank you, Chair Mickens-Murray. On behalf of the Board of Education, the Academic Achievement Committee is charged with overseeing the development and implementation of the school system's academic programs, operations involving student affairs, and initiatives designed to ensure effective and timely parent and community engagement with the school system. The committee's portfolio shall also include issues involving closing gaps in student academic performance, extracurricular activities, improving outcomes in low-performing schools and among underserved populations, enhancing outcomes for high-performing schools and students, and addressing issues involving educational equity. Upon adoption of academic, extracurricular, and parent and community engagement policies by the Board of Education, the committee shall monitor the implementation of the policies. The Academic Achievement Committee consists of the following members: myself, Dr. Zipporah Miller, Committee Chair; Board Member Shayla Adams Stafford, Committee Vice Chair; Board Member Curtis Valentine; Student Board Member Alvaro Saron Ruiz; Board Member Brandon Jackson. In alignment with the school year 2022-2023 Academic Achievement Committee Work Plan, the committee has had the opportunity to review and discuss our Prince George's County Public Schools students' academic performance in mathematics, reading, science, and social studies, and has received an overview and updates from various educational programs available to students in our wonderful school district. September 2022, the committee received an overview of the student learner profile, which describes the attributes and skills Prince George's County Public Schools envisions for all students to thrive in a dynamic, complex global community. We also received the instructional framework, which is a blueprint of learning experiences for all students in pre-K to grade 12, and the Literacy Plan 2.0. October 2022, an overview of all of the integrated mental health services readily available to support our students and staff. November 2022, K-12 mathematics curriculum, the learner experiences in alignment to the county and state assessments. In addition, we reviewed the mathematics and science grade distribution. December 2022, the K-12 reading English language arts curriculum, learner experiences and alignment to assessments, English language arts and social studies grade distribution, and kindergarten grades 1 and 2 literacy data. January 2023, discussion on the purpose of the Prince George's County Public Schools Assessment Program, its timeline for reporting assessment data, and benchmark data yielded for the fall 2022. Also, the Special Education Department provided the committee with an update on the action steps completed as a part of the Department of Special Education Strategic Plan. February 2023, ESOL Strategic Plan, English Language Learners, Learning Experiences, and Parent Resources. March 2023, an overview and updates on the Advanced Placement and International Baccalaureate and Dual Enrollment programs and the Career and Technical Education Program. April 2023, an overview of the Strategic Plan, monitoring and implementation of progress, the school performance plan process, and the data-informed practices to improve the curriculum. Coming up in May, the committee will receive an overview of the specialty programs, and in June, we will receive an overview of the early learning gearing up for kindergarten readiness. The Academic Achievement Committee is committed to continuing the work of the board and is grateful to have been successful in developing and cultivating a wonderful working relationship with the CEO's designated representatives who attended all of our meetings, prepared to provide us with thorough information regarding our students' learning experiences and the academic programs. So to our CEO, Dr. Monica Golson, and your team, we want to say thank you. I would also like to thank my fellow committee members for their collaboration and support as I served as chair. I am grateful for the opportunity to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The board will hear public comments from speakers on agenda and non-agenda items. To the registered speakers, you have been registered to speak in a public comment forum where the Board of Education will listen to your comments. The board will not address your comments. All registered speakers will have 3 minutes to make their presentations. Registered speakers may not relinquish any part of their speaking time to another registered or unregistered individual. Speakers may not address individuals or issues with profanity or derogatory terms. You will be warned once. If you continue, your comments will be muted, and you may be removed from the meeting. Speakers are encouraged to use titles rather than names. For example, principal, CEO, chair, board member, etc. Your adherence to these guidelines will enable the public participation process to move smoothly. There are 11 public live speakers. Our first speaker is Ryan Reed, student, academic integrity. I don't see Mr. Reed. Okay, our next speaker, Anari Leah, Imagine Lincoln Public Charter School renewal student. Excuse me, is Anari, yeah, there she is.
Good evening, Prince George's County Board of Education, Imagine Mid-Atlantic Regional Staff, Imagine Lincoln family, and other distinguished guests. My name is Anari Lee, and I'm an 8th grade scholar at Imagine Lincoln Public Charter School. I have been asked to speak tonight not only for myself, but as the voice of the student body of Imagine Lincoln. As Student Council President, I would like to make a plea for you to allow our school to remain open. I have attended Imagine Lincoln Public Charter School for 7 years now. I am very honored to have the opportunity to speak about this wonderful school. Imagine Lincoln has helped me improve who I am in many ways. Through their character development program, rigorous academics, and through other programs like Clan of Futuristic Artists, otherwise known as COFA. These programs have helped me to not only have the platform to be one of the best in my class, but give me the confidence I need to achieve at the next level. The staff at Imagine Lincoln are like family, and they genuinely care about your education. With the guidance and stellar academic teaching I received over the course of these several years, I was accepted to Oxon Hill's Science Tech program and Duval's aerospace program, and I ultimately chose Oxon Hill to continue my studies in high school.
Oh, wonderful.
While these achievements are not an easy feat for students my age, I'm confident that I will prosper in high school because Imagine Lincoln has laid the foundation that I will stand strong and firm as I continue my academic career. Moreover, Imagine Lincoln provides not only the academics needed, they build confidence, improve social skills, alleviate anxiety, and give the youth hope for a better future. Imagine Lincoln plays a major role in our community. We partner with River of Life Church to put on a galas, bazaars, and community days for all to attend. We have a community day event coming up on May 20th, which is providing free health screenings and financial awareness seminars to all those who come out. There will be activities and food for the kids as well. Taking Imagine Lincoln away will be detrimental to the members of our community because they provide so many opportunities and resources for not only students but for their families as well. These resources are so important to our community as whole as we live in these uncertain times. I hope that through my words, you are able to understand just how important Imagine Lincoln is to not only to me, but to my family.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your comments. We will now hear from Shannon Reed, individual, teaching and learning. I don't see that person. Okay, next we have Mr. Martin Diggs, ACE, ASSCME Local 2250, Safety on Prince George's County's Workplaces.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak tonight. I'm Martin Diggs, President of ASME Local 2250, Educational Support Personnel in Prince George's County Public School System. I'm here to speak about safety in our school system. I'm pretty sure everyone is aware of what happened last Monday. We do not want the schoolyards to be the graveyard. This incident that happened is about a lack of safety on Prince George's County Public School System grounds, on the school buses, in the bus yards, at the schools, and non-school-based work locations. These places need to be secure, and they're not. We need to make sure that it's our responsibility that every student, teacher, and staff member feels safe and secure within the confines of their own schools. However, recent events have brought a light to an alarming pattern of inadequacies in this regard. Our educational facilities should be sanctuaries of learning, fostering an environment of conducive to grow in intellectual development. Yet the prevailing lack of safety jeopardizes this very instance of our own mission. If you're not talking about this incident, you should be talking about this incident. Local 2250 has comprised a list of individuals who have worked, and we've given had certain meetings so that we could give recommendations to the office, to Prince George's County Public School System, of what would make our workplaces even safer. 75% of those recommendations were rejected. We told Prince George's County that this was going to happen. Back when the recommendations came down from the county executive's office, we said this was going to happen. I want you all to think about something. This incident that happened on the bus was attempted murder to a student on that bus. That could have been our child. That could have been the bus driver and the aide. That could have been your sister. That could have been your mother. Not enough is being done to keep our staff and our students safe. If you don't think it's real, just sit around and watch. It's going to happen. We have an opportunity, we have a duty to make sure that we make these places safe for everyone, and they're not safe. These recommendations, I bring these to you now, and it's not an agenda item. The reason why I bring it, because I hope that it's going to show up on the agenda very soon. And we can open up discussions about making the workplaces in Prince George's County schools safe. Now, this board voted on some stuff, but it wasn't this particular individuals. But the board voted, and you rejected some of these recommendations. That's a disgrace. I'm not happy with it. It's a lot of people who are not feeling safe at their work locations, and I hope you all take the next time we come, when this shows up on the agenda, you all take a good look at it and make some changes. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Sure.
Our next speaker, Timothy Meyer, Mount Rainier Elementary PTO, Power of PTOs.
Thank you. I'm here to talk about the power of PTOs and one school's story of PGCPS progress under Dr. Goldson. I've been a PTO leader at Mount Rainier Elementary 4 years now, the past 3 as president. We're a relatively small school, but I like to call us the little PTO that could. In 4 years, we've become a green school, removed asphalt to tackle stormwater, added bike racks, went beyond the national walk, bike, and roll to school days, hosting regular walk to school Wednesdays, transformed school grounds with new benches, new sign, doors painted, a mural, other public artwork, plus some of the most extensive gardens anywhere in PGCPS. We created a pilot outdoor classroom, then secured ARPA funding to upgrade it, led food drives for families in need, surprised teachers with a complete renovation of their teacher's lounge, funded assemblies, arts integration, and teacher training, added new soccer goals, took a school gazebo and added vegetable gardens, art, reading areas, pollinators, and even solar lighting, thanks to an idea from Dr. Goldson. And yes, we still do traditional public monthly meetings, plus the movie and restaurant nights, community events, pet shows, carnivals, and more. But none of this happens without a true partnership between PTO and principal, and we're blessed with one of PGCPS's best. Our partnership has delivered $160,000 in grants and other funding these past 4 years. She's always had my back, and you bet I've got hers. One personal story. I could have left. My daughter had one of those golden lottery tickets in hand, and Glen Arden waiting. Our family said no. We stayed because someone had to. Someone had to step up and take the harder path and stand up for neighborhood schools to make sure that the kids without as much privilege as mine had a voice willing to fight just as hard every day for them. We trusted our little neighborhood school with our children's education, and they've made us proud. Some say that PTO leader is a thankless job. I'm here to say it's the best job in the world. And it would have been easier to just bring a card and flowers tonight and say happy retirement. But neighborhood schools don't do easy. We roll up our sleeves, take on the tough fights, keep moving forward. So to Dr. Goldson, here's one promise. This little PTO that could is just getting started, and we will make sure every day that your legacy continues. Thank you very much for everything over your tenure as CEO.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker, Phyllis Wright, William Hall PTO, School Security and Safety and Waste of Taxpayer Dollars for Personal Privileges.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Phyllis Wright, PTO President of William Hall Academy. I have here my daughter, Nevaeh Mating, honor roll student, perfect attendant, and outstanding citizen. So I'm very proud of her. So I'm here today to speak on safety and security, not only for our children, but for our staff as well. We've had several incidents at our school. As a matter of fact, I had one today that I wasn't happy with, but I know the outcome will be just fine. Moving forward, Dr. Golson, we appreciate you with all you've been doing, the whole 10 years since they've been in school. I've been working with you. I am so truly blessed to have you. I am so proud of her and her sister and what they have done and what they're going to do in the future, because they are our future. I come here to stand on each and every child here. We have an epidemic problem with opioids that needs to be addressed. Our safety and security, we need security in all of our schools, not just in our high school, in all of our schools. And hoping and praying this year, moving forward in September, that we will have metal detectors in not just high school, but in each and every one of our schools, and even on the buses, because we have problems on the buses as well. So that new bill that you all passed, that the board voted on, we could have done a lot with that $250,000. I think we could have hired more teachers. We could have got more security officers. We could have got more nurses in there. And we can work on this epidemic with this opioid crisis, because our kids are literally dying to get high. So I'm proud of my daughter. I'm proud of this staff. Moving forward, thank you all so very much for allowing me to come here to this board and speak. As many years as I've been coming up here, and I will continue to come as long as my children are in school. And even when they're not, I'll still come back, because I know there's a need for a parent like me to speak up and to speak out. Thank you so much. And Dr. Golson, I don't know what we're going to do without you, but they told me I got 3 more months of you, so I can't wait to see what we're going to do next. Hopefully, your staff will be picked, because you have led the legacy for them, and you have a great staff. So I hope they don't go outside and look at what we have in-house, because we have a good staff here. And I see Dr. Fawcett, I know he's still doing a wonderful, good job. And your wife, Ms. Fawcett, she's doing one too, so I know she's watching. I'm not going to beat up on your husband, but I just wanted to say, please, let's work on security for all of our schools, not just for high school. And we need metal detectors, guys. We really do. And we need to work on these kids that's dying to get high. This opioid crisis is for real. It's for real. I talk to my kids a lot. I'm not going to talk you to death, but thank you so very much for having me come. All right, thank you. Come on, baby.
Thank you for your comments. Sarah Cypress, Principal, Imagine Foundations at Morningside. Charter Renewal, Imagine Foundations at Morningside.
Good evening. I'm Sarah Cypress, the proud principal at Imagine Foundations at Morningside Charter School. I provide my comments this evening in support of the renewal of the charter agreement with Prince George's County Public Schools. Imagine Foundations at Morningside has served the community for 12 years, each year partnering with families in the journey of their children's education and character development. In this time, the 12 years, our community and commitment to serve has grown stronger through the growth and development of our team of educators, administrators, and support staff who all work to ensure that there is a rigorous instruction in a safe, caring community where our scholars are free to imagine a picture of success, plan action steps, and achieve their goals. Our community, which is affectionately known as Imagine Morningside, is built upon a firm foundation of our shared values of justice, integrity, and fun, and our accountability measures for excellence. Our school community, there we work to live out our commitment to partnering with families to support successful outcomes for scholars, academic growth, and academic achievement. As recently as today, our school was acknowledged by Prince George's County Public Schools Area 2 Office for increased percent proficiency in academic growth in reading as measured by the school year 21-22 Maryland State Department of Education report card. We work to create an environment that is emotionally safe, empowering for all of our community members. We do that through character development, social emotional learning, and community building. As a community, we are committed to being a learning organization, and our continued school development depends on our responsiveness to feedback and ensuring the development of instructional practices to support academic success. As I consider the many families and scholars that there are many stories that I could share. Stories of siblings, cousins, and neighbors enrolling in our school because of the powerful experiences of others. I would like to take time to share the story of one community member who has multiple perspectives and roles. Ms. Natasha Brown is an Imagine Morningside teacher and a parent of a kindergarten scholar. Ms. Brown is concluding her second year as an Imagine Morningside educator, and with the biggest display of confidence and commitment to our school community, she has enrolled her daughter as an Imagine School Scholar. Ms. Brown took on the role of teaching our newly adopted reading curriculum as part of the commitment to ensure that every Imagine Morningside scholar had the stability of a high-quality reading and math teacher throughout the year, even as we faced in the midst of what is known as a huge teacher shortage. Ms. Brown was approached by school administration to take a reading position vacancy and to leave a subject that she loved and that she felt very comfortable with. And again, this is just one example of the many community members that are that we do have at Imagine Morningside. We do ask that you consider our renewal. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jennifer Hooker, Individual Academic Programs.
Good evening. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I am Jennifer Hooker. I am a retired educator from Prince George's County Public Schools. I'm a speech pathologist and a special education teacher. So I'm going to speak to you about an evidence-based activity that incorporates interactions with horses. And the activity title is Positive Outcomes on Children's Mental Health Through the Therapeutic Sport of Horseback Riding. It is a known fact that being around horses can be a huge benefit when working with individuals suffering from trauma and mental health issues. Horseback riding activities can help build self-esteem, confidence, communication and language skills, trust, social skills, impulse control, and help with learning boundaries. The mission is to provide equine services that will benefit children and adolescents who may present with special needs, mental health issues, emotional trauma, and learning challenges. This activity will also provide an environment that fosters physical, emotional, and behavioral growth in children. Basically, the intuitive nature of horses will enrich the quality of life of all individuals of all ages. The goal here is to promote improvement in physical, social, emotional, and cognitive functions. There is research that points to a significant correlation between children and adolescents who have experienced adverse trauma, increased involvement in the juvenile justice system, increased academic failure, social emotional issues, and learning difficulties. Studies have also documented the beneficial effects of equine therapy of the sport of horseback riding for addressing certain areas of needs. Studies have also shown that there is a bond between people and horses or other animals that is linked to several health benefits. And some of the health benefits include decreased anxiety, decreased depression, PTSD, decreased blood pressure, decreased cholesterol. The therapeutic sport of horseback riding would prove to be very beneficial to the students of Prince George's County Public Schools and can be offered during the day or as an after-school program. This is a cutting-edge addition. This could be a cutting-edge addition to the outdoor education program at Camp Smith. I am currently providing this service now, and I've been doing this for approximately 15 years. And as I said, it is an evidence-based activity that incorporates horses, and we're a nonprofit organization as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Sure. Our next speaker is Tonya Wingfield, Individual Acceleration Academies, LLC.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to digress just a little because Jennifer's program, my granddaughter participated in it, and so I definitely know it does work. Okay, I did some research on the program for the Florida location for the Acceleration Academies LLC, and was quite impressed, and I want to thank our CEO for answering questions that I had also. And so I want to just say that I definitely support what the administration, the direction that they're going with this program. The benefit that this program is going to offer, it gives us some good wraparound services. Not only will PGCPS have programs in place that will focus on preventing dropouts, but now this program will give us recovery of those who have dropped out. And so again, I think this is a winning situation for all education stakeholders. Have a couple questions about some policy changes too. Policy 5162, that's going to be repealed. And now, is this actually being repealed because there's something else in place that will do a waiver for kids that cannot afford summer school? So that was one question about that. And then the do not resuscitate changes, which I think it's an excellent focus on this policy. But I was just looking at all of the notifications. It looks like it's a lot of a manual process. And so is there anything that you can look at, maybe a cloud-based system, so that there's real-time notification to all the individuals? Because I can see a lack of notifications given to somebody actually being a liability on the school system. I want to thank you all for now making sure board meetings are prominently on the school board site. But now, if you can change that also for the links, because the links to sign up, to participate, is like 2 layers down on the system. So if you all can look at that. My final comment, legal fees. Legal fee, anytime bills are paid late, they accrue interest and they accrue late fees. So let's get those legal fees paid. For the former chair, it's actually a no-brainer. So you've already got the advice of your legal counsel. It should be paid. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Our next speaker, Donna A. Young, Individual General.
Good evening, Madam Chair, CEO, and board members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I am back to ask the question, what is the purpose of our ethics policies, the ethics panels, and any policy and procedures that are supposed to direct the board, when in fact the board is just covering up or dismissing regulations that guide its conduct, its employees and board members. I pulled off our policy 107, which states that the Board of Prince George's County, recognizing that our system of representative government is dependent in part upon the people maintaining the highest trust in the public officials and employees, finds and declares that the people have a right to be assured the impartiality and independent judgment of public officials and employees will be maintained. However, we don't seem to be consistent in doing that. I mentioned to you at the last time I spoke that I requested to go before the board because the policy was not followed in my wrongful termination. I received a letter that stated why I could not participate before the board, which is the policy that I was supposed to go through. And that letter was falsified to give to the CEO, and the CEO sent it to me. That information not only was not had anything to do with my case and the case of the individual, Mr. Holmesley, who you sent me his personal information about his case, but in fact, no one asked or even followed up from the board to say what is going on, to ask a question. The only thing we have in common is that we were both wrongfully terminated for being whistleblowers. Now, I do understand, and I know that the administration has certain processes that they go through, but it's supposed to go through the board. If you're not going to follow your own procedures, if you're not going to adhere to the ethics, we have provided documented proof in both our cases where things were changed, altered, and just plain old falsified. When do you step up and say, okay, we need to look into these cases rather than ignoring or trying to dismiss them? We are your constituents. We expect and hope that you are looking after our best interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Our next speaker is Lance Pace, Principal of Imagine Lincoln. Request for renewal of Imagine Lincoln, PS, Prince George's Charter School.
Good evening, PGCPS Board of Education members. My name is Lance Pace, the principal of Imagine Lincoln Public Charter School. I speak this evening in respectful support of our renewal of the charter agreement for our school. I would like to thank the board and Dr. Golson and the staff of the Charter School Office for their ongoing dialogue and support throughout this renewal process. The leadership team at Imagine Lincoln has appreciated the numerous opportunities to tell our story. I've had the privilege of witnessing firsthand the tremendous impact Imagine Lincoln has had on our scholars, family, and broader community. And since my arrival in September 2022, as the school leader, I witnessed dedicated educators work tirelessly to implement a new aligned, rigorous curriculum while also working to meet the needs of the people and scholars we serve daily. This has not been an easy year as we face new challenges daily. As you know, on Monday, we unexpectedly lost a 6th grade student. However, it's our resilience that keeps us encouraged as we cherish the life of that scholar, working towards our goals that we are determined to reach. We have implemented instructional professional development and staff support for the curriculum to further improve scholar academic outcomes. We have initiated various intervention programs and support services to ensure that each scholar receives the attention and resources they need to thrive academically, emotionally, and socially. And our commitment to accelerated academic growth has been evident in our school-wide monthly Rise Up sessions that emphasize clear academic expectations and goals.
In addition to academic growth, Imagine Lincoln has been a beacon of positive change in our community. We have worked diligently to foster a culture of respect, empathy, and inclusivity for our entire community. Renewing our charter agreement will provide us with the opportunity to build upon our accomplishments and continue our mission to provide scholars with a world-class learning opportunity by creating a caring learning environment, developing the intellect and morality of our scholars, and preparing our scholars for the lives of leadership in this rapidly changing world. I kindly request your consideration and support for the renewal of Imagine Lincoln's charter agreement. Our resolute team, passionate scholars, and supportive community are counting on your decision to ensure the continued success and positive impact of our school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pace. Our final speaker is Shannon Reed.
Good evening. In 2001, when I began teaching in PGCPS, I believed that if students receive quality instruction, they would learn. Eventually, I realized that teaching and learning are inseparable and that a lot of factors impact both. Engagement is critical for learning. Students' behavior, skills, and data are a reflection of their engagement. If you do not listen, you cannot learn. Recently, I have addressed this board 4 times about disturbing realities that affect teaching and learning. I'm not sure that you actually listen. The agendas and presentations have not changed. It's like that at school, too. Too many administrators hear and see what they want. Some administrators act as if they know more about students and instruction than teachers. For instance, last year, I repeatedly and explicitly explained to the former administrator over English that students who struggle need the same teacher for English 10 and English 10 Lab because it takes more time, more attention, more effort, more instruction, and more data analysis to provide strong support with reading, writing, critical thinking, and work habits. This administrator ignored the root causes of student struggles and transferred students out of my English 10 class. Most of these students passed English 10 but failed the MCAP. My data analysis also showed that my English 10 students passed the MCAP at a higher rate than my lab students. Knowing this, when students began transferring late in the 3rd quarter again this year, I explained to them that they should sit still. They listen. When students listen more and have better discernment than adults, there is a profound level of disengagement. The parts are not working together. Currently, in education, people outside the classroom shape educational policies and practices more than teachers inside the classroom. Research, nor curriculum guides, nor educational software, nor administrators can do what teachers must do. Knowledge and tools and human resources should train teachers and empower students. Please consider prioritizing teacher-led professional development over educational software. Please consider how to develop administrators into instructional leaders. Invest in people, not programs and products. Some general principles might help here. Teaching and learning prepares people for life. If you see the program grows more than the teachers and learners, get rid of it. If the language of the research muffles the needs of the students and teachers, adjust it. If technology distances the teacher and learner, balance it. If honest, well-trained, currently teaching teachers are not key participants in conversations about data, instruction, software, then things are out of order. Teaching and learning is for every single person in a community because restoring teaching and learning restores safety and order and equity and integrity and people. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand that we have a student, Ryan Reed, that was on the list. Thank you, Ms. Reed.
Good evening. I'm a sophomore at Dr. Henry A. Wise Junior High School. When I first started high school, I was excited for a lot. New friendships, social experiences, and most of all, academic challenges. However, I was met with constant chaos and a skewed social perspective. When you walk into Wise High School, the first thing you smell is marijuana. When you leave the school, you also smell it. Students constantly loiter the hallways, bathrooms, and sometimes other teachers' classrooms while they are teaching. They are in other places because they are not learning. They loiter the hallways because they do not feel challenged. They hang out in the bathrooms because they want to feel like they belong to something important. They lack direction, focus, and drive. They lack these things because teachers simply do not engage or teach students. Last year, I took the Algebra 1 MCAP and failed by 4 points. I may have passed it if I had taken it the same year I took the class, and I definitely would have passed if I had a teacher. However, I went through an online program because my middle school did not provide an Algebra 1 class. I had to teach myself the content. For geometry, I took a 19-day online course through Edgenuity that I again had to teach myself the content. When I got to Algebra 2 in the 9th grade, I had a real teacher, and I was confused most of the time. Now, I'm in pre-calculus in the 10th grade. Some days I dread walking into my math classroom because I fear that my math skills are not strong enough to understand the content. I lack basic skills in math. Even though I have taught myself topics, nothing replaces instruction from a professional. This year I took AP Government, and my brother, a former PGCPS student, also took AP Government. He got a 5 on his exam, and naturally I expected that I would also get a 5. However, when I entered the classroom, I had a bunch of expectations, and these expectations were not met. Instead of teaching, we spent more time debating topics than actually learning about government. My hope for a 5 slowly declined. When I went to study for the AP Government exam, I was stunned. I discovered that we were only in Unit 2 and we had not learned a lot. We were nearing the end of the school year, and when my classmates finally took the exam, they explained that our teacher had not taught us anything. I hear kids constantly struggle with the fact that they say that they are not smart enough for school. This is simply because they are not taught. Teachers have left them to their own devices. These kids become the kids in the hallways, in other teachers' classrooms, and in the bathrooms. This cycle can stop, but only if you help us.
Thank you so much for your comments. Colleagues, we move to there was one written comment. This written comment can be found on board docs. Thank you all for your comments this evening. 4.1 Facilities. I will now yield the floor to Dr. Golson for an introduction of item 4.1.
Thank you. Dr. Fawcett and the Building Services team will provide an overview of the discussion item on school system facilities. I now turn it over to Dr. Fawcett.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Golson. Good evening, Chair Mickens Mary and fellow board members. As you know, tonight was originally scheduled as a board work session, but with the cancellation of May 2nd meeting due to graduation season, tonight's meeting has been changed to a regular board meeting. While we know we won't have much time to dialogue in reference to our maintenance program, we stand ready to present to you. In response to your question, how do we maintain our buildings? Tonight I have with me Director Sam Stefanelli, Building Services, Director Sean Matlock for the capital programs. We also have Associate Superintendent Dr. Sharosco Coleman. And I do want to acknowledge some members of our operations senior staff who are present with us tonight. We have Mr. Antoine Taylor, who is the Supervisor of Plant Operations. We have Mr. John Van Slyke, who is the Supervisor of Maintenance. And we have Mr. Alex Baylor, who is the Supervisor of our Environmental Program. So without any further ado, I turn it over to Dr. Stefanelli at this time.
Good evening. I welcome the opportunity to be able to speak with the board tonight about our maintenance program. I don't want to make this thing go. There it is. Tonight we're here to talk with capital programs to discuss the maintaining of our aging facilities. Our staff strives to provide a safe schools for our staff, our students, and the community. As Dr. Fawcett alluded to, we have 3 components that make up building services. We have plant operations, maintenance, and the environmental office. Operations consist of our school-based personnel, custodians, over 1,000 custodians that are based in the school. They're also responsible for facility use and supporting the recycling program. Our maintenance department consists of local, centrally located support. They provide general and preventative maintenance, compliance, energy response, and working with capital programs to manage and develop projects to help leverage the capital expenditures towards our maintenance department. And finally, our environmental office, who was originally responsible for asbestos and pest control, has expanded to also include mold remediation, air, and water quality. As you're aware, we have 228 facilities in our inventory, 188 of which are schools. More than 50% of these facilities are over 40 years age. Most of the major components have exceeded their life expectancy of 30 years. And as requested tonight, we will look to show you how we are working to maintain our aging facilities with our limited resources. The major challenges facing our department are keeping up with the increased workload, implementing a preventative maintenance program without affecting our ability to keep up with the increased workload, and additional responsibilities have been placed on our building staff, limiting the time allotted to maintenance, which is also affecting our preventative maintenance program. Just to give you a rundown of what our expenditures are, this is our FY22 operating budget. As you can see, our plumbing and HVAC shop is one of the highest expenditures. That's the shop that covers most of the mechanical components that have exceeded their useful life. Our contracted services, which has expanded over the last 5 years, is what we use to provide critical systemic services, supplement our workforce, compliance, and preventative maintenance. Challenge number one, keeping up with the increased workload of aging schools. This chart shows the correlation between our work order requests and our completed work orders. Prior to FY16, Building Services was challenged to keep pace, completing the number of work orders received annually. Historically, completing 85% of work requests was the norm, increasing our backlog by 15% annually. Our first priority was the need to complete 100% of the work orders we receive in any given year to stop the bleeding. Beginning in FY15, using a data-driven collaborative decision process, we were able to refocus resources, improve efficiencies, and close the gap of work orders received versus work orders completed. FY16, we reached 97%. FY18, we actually got above to 103%, and we're on target this year to get at or near 100% again. The chart also shows you the increase in our work orders received. FY16 was 40,000, a little over 40,000 work orders. FY22, that jumped to 48,000, and we're on pace this year to reach the 50,000 work order mark. To answer your questions how we were able to maintain the aged facility, although we have an increased workload of over 18% over the last 7 years, with our plan for continuous improvement, coupled with the foresight of the executive leadership and the Board of Education to provide increased resources over the past 5 years, we were able to increase our productivity by 16%, effectively keeping pace with the increased workload. Although our FTE count is slightly higher, this chart represents the actual mechanics doing work in the areas for our mechanical equipment. These are the boots on the ground. For example, our HV mechanics have 23 facilities. On any given day when the temperature is 80, 90 degrees, most of their buildings are going to have an issue, some small, some large. And our mechanics and supervisors have to make tough decisions which one to address first. This chart shows, as all of our data, the increase in our workload per mechanic due to the aging buildings. However, we continue to improve, increasing productivity at the same time, increasing the number of work orders we're able to do within 7 days or less over the same time period. Implementing a preventative maintenance program without overwhelming our workforce is a critical component of this. A good indicator of our ability to complete preventative maintenance work orders is what percentage you can complete within 30 days. The benchmark is 80%. If you get below 80% of your work orders completed in 30 days, then you are saturating or overwhelming your workforce. Up until FY19, we were consistently over 80%. In FY19, we reached saturation. We dropped to 65%, showing an additional need for resources. Although we are trending up, we have not reached the 80% threshold yet. We have initiatives that we have put in place to counter this need for resources. Our first initiative was to continue to expand our PM on large HVAC equipment to include controls and realign some of our custodial staff to create 5 two-person teams that can perform PM in the elementary school level. We also, as we spoke last time, contracted with a company called Bureau Veritas North America to develop PM schedules, inventory all of our equipment, and place barcodes on the equipment. As we spoke to before, we were concerned that we were going to meet our deadline. However, we are on track to complete phase 1, that's inventory and equipment, data gathering, and barcoding next week on May 20th. And phase 2, creating the PM schedules, is on track to be completed September 1st. Once this is completed, this will help us develop a preventative maintenance schedules that will determine the resources needed to establish and maintain a comprehensive preventative maintenance plan. Our third challenge is added responsibility to our custodial staffs. Our elementary schools typically have 3 custodians, 2 custodians at night and 1 during the day. Our typical building supervisor has a schedule that left 2 hours in the morning historically to do preventative maintenance work, cutting grass, changing filters, and that type of thing. Having added breakfast in the classroom, we have pre-K that we've added, has put a lot of strain on the day staff's workload, which is limiting the amount of work that they can do while supporting the school. So as I previously mentioned, Mr. Taylor realigned some of his staff, used 10 FTEs to create 2 two-person teams, to assist the building supervisors with their work. As part of our effort to move away from reactive maintenance, we began facility inspections for all of our buildings. Every year, we inspect our facilities 3 times, once by our maintenance coordinators and twice by our custodial coordinators. Our goal is to have all our schools reach 70% on all inspections. We have standard operating procedures in place to improve the school scoring below 70. Our custodial process is focused on cleaning, sanitation, building safety, grounds, and maintenance. Our maintenance inspection identifies and corrects deficiencies not usually requested by building occupants. For example, stormwater management systems and flooding, portable buildings and outdoor classrooms, checking our building envelope for water penetration and mold, and our athletic facilities. Although this is contracted out, this provides additional oversight and catches issues early in time for the field to be repaired and recover prior to the season beginning. Historically, what would happen is the AD would go out August 1st to get ready for football, August 15th, find an issue, and then we have an issue with the football team being able to practice if it's unsafe. So we're going to get out in front of that. I wanted to give you an update on our water quality. Having disabled all of our water fountains for COVID-19, we are in the process of flushing and testing all drinking sources prior to reactivation. Our goal is to complete prior to students returning this fall, And moving forward, we will continue testing all drinking sources every 3 years and mitigate any issues. The website, the results are posted on the website here on the slide. And now I would turn it over to Sean Matlock. There you go.
So the Capital Programs Department works and coordinates its activities with the Building Services Department. Currently, we provide roughly about 3 project managers that work out of my department on a contractual basis to manage a lot of the capital size projects that Building Services identifies during the course of the year to our staff. Right now, we have about 855 active projects at various stages that being completion from design to construction, amounting to about $1.1 billion worth of construction expenses as a value as of April 2023. Roughly 48% of the capital budget is utilized to support facilities maintenance, and most of that is in the form of capital projects replacing systemics within the buildings. So these turn into small renovations, minor renovations. Sometimes they're large renovations. We engage in secondary school reform, science lab renovations, open space enclosure pod conversions, which we return open spaces back into regular classroom size spaces, food and kitchen modifications, updates like that, things such as grease traps that need to be replaced. We replaced about 86 grease traps at one point. We do modifications to meet standards to support both classrooms and building code requirements and ADA requirements, like lifts, all types of things that are necessary for the school to operate and make it a comfortable environment for the students. HVAC is a big part of that as well. So as you can see, we right now, I think there's a breakdown in FY22. We had roughly 680 active projects that year. You can see the breakdown, but you see things like we support abatement by paying for budgeting for abatements, fuel tank removals out of the ground buried fuel tanks, ADA upgrades, athletic improvements, and all kinds of major and minor emergency projects. And what we're dealing with is we have such an old school system that our inventory is constantly being under pressure. And as you can see from the original budget that Mr. Stefanelli had presented, there's only about $73 million annually that's utilized for maintenance of over 228 schools, 228 schools. And as a result of that, and given their age, there are systems that need to be replaced on a regular basis. So if you think about it, every roof has a 20-year useful life. So in that situation, we should be replacing roughly 10 to 12 roofs every year, but we're not. We're barely replacing 3 or 4 roofs a year, but we're trying to support that budget with the capital side to replace roofs. And then they used to do maintenance in the form of small replacements of the HVAC systems, but that's proven to not be very efficient. So what we're doing now is we're doing larger renovations for efficiency purposes, where we're bringing in and replacing the windows that add to the balancing of the systems when we put in new systems, and we're not just putting in piping, go into a new system, or old piping into a new system, or a new system into, or new piping into an old system. We're trying to replace the entire thing to make sure that it's updated. But an HVAC system, or a lot of the systems in these buildings, can be almost as much as 25% of the original cost of the building. So it's very expensive to do, and so the only way to support those types of activities is through the use of the capital budget. So we're also often run into, and I'm not making this work very well. Yeah, I'm trying to advance the slide. I don't know why it's not working. Oh, there we go. So one of the examples, so we're also roughly always running, we're averaging about 3 structural issues a year. And so when you have an inventory as old as our inventory is, you're often running into structural projects. Windowsills failing, flooring failing. We did a recent structural study, which was to support some of the activities that were happening in the maintenance department, as well as to identify work that needs to be done. And that structural study has led to a few schools that we're now moving to replace as part of our ACF project. But one of the examples of the type of deferred maintenance and the impact that deferred maintenance has on us is that at Suitland High School, which we're replacing, we determined that there were some issues with the structural supports where they had separated the flooring from the floors. And we had to replace them for the building to be usable while we were getting ready to rebuild it. And that was an expensive fix. It was like $1.4 million. And those are the types of projects that we're running into all the time, where we're having structural elements of a building start to fail, retaining walls. The same thing happened at Margaret Brent, where the back walls were not supportable, and we had to condemn the building, and we've demolished it. We're in the process of demolishing it. It will be rebuilt. But these are the types of things that are happening on a regular basis. And we're trying to support, work together. We coordinate our activities. We try to coordinate projects every year in order to make sure that we're making a smart use of the money. And as a result, we're trying to move through the inventory and keep it updated as much as possible. And again, we're working as a team to make that happen.
Thank you. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you so much. Board members, do you have any questions? Board Member Adam Stafford.
Thank you so.
Turn your mic on.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and forgive me, I have a cold here. I have a few questions, specifically, I think for Mr. Matlock around the improvement projects that you just mentioned. So, in my time on the board, I haven't seen like a cost analysis of the labor and the materials that are used for different projects. And I do remember in the IAC report that we received, I believe that it was like an audit done in 2018, they showed that we were out of other, in comparison to other counties, paying more for, labor, paying more for materials, and that's concerning to me, feeling like people are, getting double out of us. And so my question is there a cost analysis process that you all are undergoing on your side? Can we see some reports that can help us understand, okay, regionally, where do we land and how, in terms of the cost of these projects? Because when you say, we should be replacing 20 roofs a year and we're only replacing 3. And you have, as you showed us, you have the FTEs, you have the people, right? So it's trying to understand what are some of the challenges. And I do know that there was a slowdown in the cost of materials did increase with the pandemic. But I'm saying comparatively speaking, where do we land and how are you doing that analysis?
So what we do. So what we do is most costs are indexed geographically. So recently I saw there was a report done that was comparing the cost of high schools. They were comparing us to like Cecil County. Well, what we have to pay is prevailing wage, and prevailing wage is an indexed cost. It's not a standard price. So a laborer in let's say Cecil County makes $17 less per hour for the work that they do than if they were in Prince George's County. And that's an indexed cost based on that the state establishes for us to utilize. Now, think about what happens on a construction site. Let's say you have 100 workers on a construction site. You're paying $1,700 an hour every hour more on a project in our county than you might pay in another county because of that prevailing wage and the indexing that's done geographically. The same thing happens for fuel. The same thing happens for a lot of the other aspects around construction. And what we end up doing is we end up spending more as a result because of where we are, the market that we sit in. We're similar to Montgomery County. We're a lot less than DC, but they're all in the same market, and that drives up the cost of labor, equipment, materials, rental costs. All that's indexed geographically. There's a place where you can go to find that out, and it's something we use oftentimes to verify our pricing. It's called RS Means. It's a book. It's about this thick, and it has all the costs for materials, labor, and everything indexed and broken down and then there's a geographical index in the back that gives you a multiplier to apply to those prices. And it's something that we use to go about and verify pricing. We use a lot of it to make our initial pricing when we submit budgets, and then we index the escalation based on the geographical area there too. So escalation charges for Prince George's County are higher than they are in some other parts of the county. It's all driven by your geographical market, and unfortunately, Prince George's County is in one of the most expensive markets, which is the DC metro area, and it's causing us to have, when we compare our prices to districts in our area, in this geographical area, we're pretty even. It's pretty stable. We're about the same as everybody else. Anne Arundel County, Montgomery County, DC, and Virginia, we are all around the same. Northern Virginia, we're all around the same.
Thank you, that's really helpful. I guess my question also revolves around the time it takes to complete projects.
Mm-hmm.
So, how are we auditing or tracking, the amount of time it's taking us to complete a project comparative to like our counterparts, or just, projects that we've done historically? And that's a question that I would like to just get maybe on the back end. We don't have to answer now if you don't have time.
Do you want the answer now? You want to follow up?
I'd like the answer now, if possible. Go ahead.
So generally, our biggest issue that we have in this county related to projects, new school projects, are related to permitting, and mostly to site issues. But as far as regular projects, like the ones that we're doing to support building services, boiler replacements, those types of things, HVAC systems, all of such projects, they take about a year to design and a year to complete for the most part. And in the middle there, they have to be procured. But that's generally it. We no longer do, we try to limit the number of projects that we schedule for just summer work, because we're doing larger projects in order to make them work, in order to have a more comprehensive response.
Thank you. Board Member Adam Stafford, we okay?
Does anyone else have other questions?
Next, second round, please. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Can you wait to the second
Yeah,
round?
sure. I was
Okay, thank you.
turning this off.
Board Member Fields.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, staff, for this presentation. It hit home because my elementary school no longer stands because it was condemned. It's not because I'm so old. It's just that my school district did not maintain that building. It was a historic building, so this report really hits home. I just want some clarification over the term useful life. Is that a standard expectation of the amount of years that you can get out of a building, or is this an engineering assessment of the state of our buildings in terms of the amount of time we have left to use it as a viable facility? And then the second question would be, what is the average age of our buildings in the district? Thank you.
So the average age of our buildings, our inventory is much older than we've actually our average age is like around 40 years. That's where we are right now. And the useful life is actually a determination made based on the systems themselves and the building itself. So a building could have a useful life of, let's say, 60 years, but its roof only has a useful life of maybe 20. And its HVAC system may have a useful life of maybe 25 years. And so each system is then rated on that useful life, and it's given an overall index for the entire building.
And I may add, what happens is, as a roof ages, the roof's expected life may be 30, but once we get to 20, then the work orders start to escalate, and the care it takes to keep that roof viable starts to escalate, and that's what we're seeing right now, is that where we have older components in the building, it's taking it's taking 10,000 more work orders to take care of the facilities that we did 8 years ago.
Thank you. And I ask that question just for the public's understanding, because I think sometimes when you hear useful life, if you're a parent, you're thinking that the building that your child is in is going to collapse. And so I think the public needs a better understanding of not only the conditions in our buildings, but what exactly we're talking about in terms of extending the life of that building. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Briggs.
Thank you, Chair Mickens-Murray, and thanks so much to the team here for the presentation. My question is really around you talked about lead in the water, and that's obviously a very important thing. And I was curious to know, when you think about active projects, and I know there is a difference between maintenance and the actual renovations and then the actual new builds. If it's something as serious as, I'll just go to the point that I'm trying to make here, which is that I have a number of community members that are reaching out about their children drinking from water bottles throughout the day, the piping in the school, the water is not, there's an issue with the water. And so I'm just curious, when you all address these various projects, and given that we're probably funding on average about 70 million plus, do you prioritize issues like the water and the quality of the water over roofing, or addressing something else like the HVAC? How do you think through that, or what's the process? Because I don't think I caught that when you presented.
So in terms of things like lead in the water and our water testing, we're mandated by COMAR to do certain testing at certain times. So certain things are prioritized just because they need to be and they have to be. We want to make sure that all our students are drinking safe water. So if we come across a drinking source that we cannot, that tests above the standard, and we cannot remediate it, we'll turn it off. We do have schools in the system that are completely on bottled water. They were before COVID, and they probably will be after we go back to turning on water fountains after we test them. It's just based on the age of some of our facilities and the piping. Not only the piping that is inside of some of the buildings being aged, but also what's running to us from our utilities. So it's a precarious situation, but we do prioritize certain work orders based on safety. And we try to get to as many as possible, but we $8 billion deficit, $2 million maintenance deficit. You have to make choices, but those choices are based on what we know needs to be done to keep students as safe as possible.
Yeah, I had so, and I appreciate that answer. I think that answered part of the question. I just was curious about so there's a 3-year cycle for the lead in the water. And if there are significant issues with a school's piping, are you all I guess the question I'm trying to understand is, do you all prioritize that, since that's such an important issue, to say, hey, you know what, now that we found out that there is lead in the water in the school building, we're updating the SIP, the capital improvement program, and the listing of which buildings get addressed first and last? Is that factored into how you all think through that at all? If that question is not clear, please let me know.
I'm not quite sure I'm understanding your question, because we make sure that all buildings are tested, all drinking sources are tested, and if we have to remove a drinking source, we do remove it. We'll turn off a water fountain or cap it because it can't be used. But when you talk about changing the water system or piping in the building, basically you're talking about a complete rebuild of a school building. So, you know, we can't close buildings because we need them. So if there's a building that we find that has too many sources that we had to remediate, that building will be on bottled water for drinking sources. It's a standard. So we make sure like I said, the buildings have to be tested. The drinking sources have to be tested on a 3-year rotation, and we're meeting that standard.
Okay. Well, I don't want to belabor the point.
I can add to that when we start a renovation, we do look at the lead in the water, and Sean may not be planning to do the plumbing, but because Alex says we've got an issue with lead in the water there, then we expand the program to cover that. I'm not sure how much the determination of the lead in the water drives it, but we ensure that we take care of those issues while we're there. Does that?
Yeah, and I don't want to, I think I can probably ask some of this offline to you all to get more clarity, but that answer is part of the question, so thank you.
Thank you. Next, Board Member Boozer Struthers.
Thank you so much, Chair Mickens-Murray. I just want to take the time to acknowledge Mr. Stefanelli, Dr. Facette on the timeliness improvements over these last 5 years. I sat here on this board and remember those early reports and the solutions that you brought to us, and we're seeing that come to fruition. But I think in following up with my colleague, Mr. Briggs, it's clear what we're saying here is our kids can't wait. We have an urgency in these buildings, and that is the around the $8 billion backlog, which of course now costs more, which we are hearing, and the urgency of the new school construction. And what was not mentioned during this is what you're managing of the 6 new middle schools being built in 2 years, and exactly the link to what this will do for maintenance, for our highest maintenance schools being taken offline with high-efficiency schools, and that cost difference, that you're managing additional 4 schools under construction that will also contribute to reducing the maintenance cost. And I think that just needed to be acknowledged in your portfolio of the work that the two of you do and manage together. And I had the privilege of working with both of you on the Climate Change Action Plan Work Group, and you came and spent many hours with the experts in talking about solar, clean energy schools, and geothermal. And I wanted to see if you could speak a little bit to this report is kind of our current state, but if we look at what is happening with school construction and where we're headed, because we're about to go through a lot of disruption, there will be many school communities in swing space, and we're getting to the other end of something. And I would hope you could give a little vision of what this could look like, why we're going through this, and the urgency of the funding of these schools, and why we need to keep the urgency of funding. Thank you.
So one of the things that we're trying to do is reduce the overall number of schools, and sort of modernize our inventory by both building and also consolidating. So as you'll see, when Colin Powell opens up, that school basically housed at its peak roughly about 3 other schools that will be consolidated into it. And those schools will be maintained by contract under their availability payment, so they will be off our books as far as maintenance is concerned for the next 30 years. And the 8 schools that we're now looking for phase 2, they will also be off books for 30 years. So roughly you'll have a large number of old buildings that will be consolidated into newer buildings and then taken off the books, which will allow a SAM's team to not have to worry about those very old, very poor condition buildings. In addition, of the newer buildings that we're building, we're trying to make them more efficient and more accessible so that they work better. We're also not trying to be too esoteric with the systems that we're putting in so that they're more easily maintained. So while we are trying to go with some systems that will maybe, we have better energy sources, the systems that those new energy sources support will be less complicated. They'll still be boilers, they'll still be chillers, and they'll be easily maintainable by the staff that we currently have for the ones that we're building outside of the ACF.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Board Member Dr. Harris?
Thank you, Chair. So colleagues, I know this was supposed to be a work session tonight, so I'd like to also offer up the OBAFA agenda. If you do have additional topics you want to kind of dive into in a bit more depth, you can always contact me. I think we speak for both me and my vice chair that we're willing to put those on the agenda for you, just to give administration a bit more time to provide those answers to you. So just two questions from me. You mentioned on slide 11, the work order somewhere between 40,000 and 50,000 work orders. Do those also include the preventative maintenance work orders, or are those a separate pot?
I believe they do, but I'll have to check with my data personnel just to make sure.
Okay, no problem. And your work with BVNA, is that to kind of get in front of some of these PM issues to take those work orders off the plate? Okay, I see heads nodding.
Yeah, what we're doing is we have all of our equipment in our facilities. We don't have an inventory of what we actually have over the years. So we're going to now have an inventory. We're going to have each piece of equipment is going to have a preventative maintenance schedule, and that schedule will show us what labor hours and what material it's going to cost. So we'll be able to come up with a plan to go into the next phase of preventative maintenance. Yeah. Now, we won't have the funding to fund it all, but we will have a roadmap to start to work from. We can start to do what we can do within our current resources, and then grow this over the next 4 or 5 years until we get to the point that we have a substantial preventative maintenance program.
Agreed, and I can appreciate that level of predictive risk analysis when it comes to looking at our equipment. And last thing, on slide 14, you mentioned, it says that about 36% of our work orders are being completed in 7 days or less. So I'd like to give props where they're due. 36% of 40 to 50,000 work orders is somewhere around 15,000 work orders that are being completed in less than 7 days. So great job on that as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Board Member Valentine?
Thank you. Earlier, I was giving a talk to the Indiana Philanthropy Alliance, and I highlighted 2 schools that were very prominent in American history, Julius Rosenwald schools, which are schools that were created in the early 1900s, and they span from Texas all the way to Maryland, 5,000 of them. We have one here right in Capitol Heights, the Ridgely Rosenwald School. The other one is the Manual Training School in Bordentown, New Jersey, which was the only all-black public boarding school in the country north of the Mason-Dixon. The one thing both of those schools had in common was that the school grounds and the schools were maintained by students. I'm probably the first generation of folks who actually did not have to do anything to maintain my school. Fortunately, my children are Montessori students, and so at John Hanson Montessori, they did maintain their classroom. So that need for custodial staff is diminished. I'm also a father of a student who needs community service hours. And so the question is, what role can we play as a system to support giving ownership of our schools back to our students, at the same time allowing them to maintain community service hours? My son, and I'm volunteering him on television, can cut grass. He can cut grass. He can sweep. He can take out trash. And he needs community service hours. So to his teammates, we have students who qualify for National Honor Society but don't get it because they don't have community service hours. And so maybe I'm a little old-fashioned. Maybe I believe that some of the solutions that we're looking for are right in front of our faces. And maybe I'm just one of those guys where I see a custodian in front of the school building picking up trash in the morning or on the weekends that I'm saying, this doesn't look right to me. that there are students who clearly could do this, and if we as a system could come together with some sort of common sense solutions, that we could do this. And so I guess my direct question to you and the administration is, are there schools, school districts, principals, school leaders that are looking at innovative ways to work with PTOs, PTAs, and students? I've been on the school board longer than anyone here, and I think we've been hearing this conversation. Facilities, maintenance, no money, lack of staff. I will have been on the board, and leave, and we'll still have this conversation. I'm not saying this is a solution, but to the men and women who maintain our schools and ensure that students walk into a clean environment, they just deserve better. And I believe that our students can, and are able to do the work and support, and will have more ownership. Like these schools I'm talking about, particularly the Rizzy Rosenwald schools and the manual training schools, were maintained by students. They cut the grass. They serve the food. And so when people throw things on the ground, like I'm looking at you differently when you're my classmate, hey bro, I gotta pick that up. The accountability rests with the students. We police ourselves. And so is this something that you all would consider, because again, I have someone who's looking for work.
Thank you.
I'm waiting for an answer.
You are waiting for an
Yeah, I asked
answer
the question.
from who? Dr. Golf? Who are you waiting for the answer from?
To
Because
be very diplomatic, we would consider anything. Times have
Then maybe a
changed,
school board
rules have
decision.
changed, liabilities have changed, but we will always look for different opportunities to make changes and have community service and partners within the school. But it's a great idea.
No, and I mean, to be quite honest, I mean, there are community partners who have come in and painted classrooms, painted libraries. I believe at Roosevelt High School, I was there, and they had PTAs, they painted the football stands. I was there when they did it. I mean, there are community partners that are going into our schools that are doing things that we would normally do if they didn't do it. The 100 Black men of Prince George's County have adopted a number of libraries and have maintained schools and do community cleanups. I know, David Smith, who's not with us anymore, he's with the University of Maryland Community Service Partnership. They are adopting schools. They're doing cleanup. The students from the University of Maryland are getting, I'm sure they're getting something for the time they're doing it. And so I'm not trying to, throw something out. It is happening. The question is, how do we confirm, how do we make this official? And again, more directly, make sure that our students are getting community service hours for doing the very things that I think need to be done.
thank you. Okay, thank you. Second round, Board Member Adam Stafford.
I had a question. I remember previously, Mr. Stefanelli, you had talked about the contracting out of some services, that some services are contracted out. And so maybe if you could speak more to your quality control protocols to ensure that like that work has been done, like once you've contracted something out, and that it's done like with fidelity. Also, I wanted to know if you could share just, generally, is there like a plan in place to reduce the work order numbers per mechanic? I know that we've talked about, hiring more staff, but, just generally, what are your thoughts on that, or how are you all working on that?
In general, that is our goal, to reduce the number of work orders per mechanic. However, with the aging the aging facilities and the aging components, those work orders keep escalating. To use contracted services, what we try to do is we have a staff member, when we have a contracted service, that creates a work order in our contractor area. And as that work gets done, all of that work is tracked and overseen by someone, and there is a work order that has the cost, so we can do analysis over the term of the contract. And what we tend to do is, for example, our electricians and our plumbers were inspecting and repairing all of our fire alarms and sprinkler systems. We took that completely away from them, gave it to a contractor. Now we have a third-party inspector, we have someone else that repairs the fire alarms and the sprinkler systems. took that off of our electricians and our plumbers' plate completely, which reduces their workload. However, until we update our inventory, it's going to keep growing. We have plans this year to add additional contracted services to keep that momentum going. However, it really takes, it's going to take a lot of effort to slow down that work order increase.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I guess I'm just asking about the quality assurance and quality control over what the contractors are doing. So like in that process, is there, sort of like a checklist, or do you come back and sort of check that it's been done properly?
For example, our HVAC contract, we have a preventative maintenance contract that does all of our chillers, cooling towers. What we do is we give that work order to the mechanic that has that school and have him put his eyes on it, because he's the one that's going to deal with any problems that arise from that contract. So he has ownership of that building already. He'll put his eyes on it to make sure the work was done properly.
Thank you. Board members, thank you, and to the staff, thank you so much for that presentation and the discussion that we've had. We will go to the consent agenda. Colleagues, we are now we will now consider the items listed under the consent agenda. Dr. Golson, would you please introduce item 5.1?
Thank you. Item 5.1 requires board approval of a proclamation commemorating National Caribbean American Heritage Month.
May I have a motion to accept item 5.1 under the consent agenda? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Nay. The ayes have it. Now we will go to 6.0, Budget Consent Agenda. Colleagues, we will now consider the items listed under the Budget Consent Agenda. Dr. Golson, please introduce items 6.1 through 6.5.
Thank you. Items 6.1 through 6.5 requires board approval of the June 2023 expenditure requirements, second financial review, land purchase agreement for Margaret Brent Elementary School and the new Robert Frost K-8, professional auditing services, and social media litigation.
Thank you. Colleagues, may I have a motion to accept items 6.1 through 6.5 under the Budget Consent Agenda? May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept 6.1 through 6.5. Any discussion? Board Member Adam Stafford? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Board
I
Member
have a
Adams.
question about the professional auditing services RFP, and my question is if we can add in some language or a clause that speaks to the failure to deliver on time, failure to deliver the audit on time. Is that something that we can add in? Okay. Oh, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for your question. Certainly, the purchasing director, Mr. Stewart, I don't see him here tonight, but that's certainly information that I can take back to him. So then when the contract is finalized, that that language is considered to be included in the final contract before final sign-off.
Yes, and I think I speak for several board members, and what we're asking is for the company to be incentivized to deliver the work on time or early. And so that's what we like, what I would like to see in the language, if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I also had a question. This is a question about the social media litigation for item 6.5. So, I'm sorry? Oh, I thought somebody was saying something. For this social media litigation, I still am unclear on what is going to be asked of the school system to provide in order for us to be a part of this litigation, because as I understand it, we are the first regionally or nationally, I don't know if someone's here from the organization that can speak to that, but how would we go about gathering that data? I know there are rules around sharing student data, and this is litigation that's focusing on student mental health, and what are we going to be asked to share or put together? I'm a little bit wary of us being, the first in the fire, if you will, with this, not knowing what is the cost to us to actually mount a case that would win.
First, Gregory Wells for the record. Let me first tell you that the Prince George's Board of Education would not be the first in this litigation. In fact, there are several other counties in the state, some of whom are meeting tonight to join the litigation that is taking place nationally on the social media issue. There are two general phases that we're going to be talking about. One is similar to what happened in Jewel, and that was involved the preparation of a fact sheet, which basically consisted of publicly available information about the school system, number of students, and that sort of thing. And that was sufficient to get us all the way to settlement on that case. The social media case, if it goes to a trial, and particularly a trial that would involve this school system, may require some more information and some more staff time. But as in any kind of litigation involving information that's private, non-public, there are always protective orders, confidentiality orders entered in the court system by the judges that will protect from the disclosure and use of non-public information.
Thank you. Could you share what type of information you think might be required in a case like this? Like what outside of the information that's publicly available? Because you say it may require staff time to assemble that information. So I'm just trying to get a better gauge on that.
Sure. We would work to, most of the information will be statistical. And then when we're talking about testimony from staffers, and let me start off this way. This is in the event that this school system was chosen as one of what's called the bellwether trials. In other words, the judge in California decides that Prince George's Board of Education ought to be one of the first cases to go to trial to see essentially what it is that's going to be involved in litigation and what a jury thinks about the case against the social media companies. In that case, you're probably talking about more so statistical information. I don't think there's any significant chance of any student identifications, names, or anything like that taking place. This is about the impact of social media on its students within the school system, and more importantly, the impact of the social media addiction and the problems that the school system has to address. For example, being sued because students are being cyberbullied, and you have to respond to those lawsuits and defend those lawsuits when it's almost nearly impossible for you to address and effectively put cyberbullying to rest. So I don't think we're looking at, like I said, information, personal, private, individualized information in these cases.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Jackson.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you. I'm always excited about securing more resources for PGCPS students. I think that's a really great idea, but anytime I'm presented with the opportunity where it's high reward and I guess not equal sweat equity, I think as a public official we have to proceed with caution, still be optimistic about it. So my question, you said about the bellwether trial, like being Prince George's County. I'm still trying to understand why Prince George's County. Is it that we present a unique set of data that's reflective of the United States population, or what is it about our school system that picks us, that make you want to start here? Also, a question that I have is, another question that I have is about the, why your firm? I'm sure this is a perfect market. There probably, other legal groups that are doing some of the same work. So why should we partner with your firm?
So let me start with the second question first. I've been
Yeah.
doing this long enough to know that, yes, there are other law firms that do this work and other law firms that do this work well. It is your decision alone as to whether or not you retain us or anyone else to do this work. I would suggest to you that we have a team of the most talented trial lawyers in this state, and of course with our partners in Los Angeles and who are leading the team that we have here today. We have successfully represented you in the Jewel litigation that was just settled a few months ago, and we're here to announce today that the second part of that case is just settled today with the Altria Group. So we'll be looking at coming back to talk to you about the recovery that we have made for you in that case as well. Me as a individual, I'll speak to me individually, I have represented this Board of Education in various capacities in probably over 20 years, from helping with labor negotiations to liability suits, CEO contract negotiations, and things of that nature. I'm a Prince George's County native, as I told you before, a product of this public school system, and somebody who, quite frankly, is here involved in litigation for this board, this school board, because I care about my home school system. Like I said, but at the end of the day, whatever team you choose is up to you. The other question, why start here? We're not necessarily starting here. Like I said, we represent you in the Jewel litigation, and I represent you in other matters, so essentially I'm a lawyer for this school system, and this litigation has arisen, and like any other lawyer taking care of a client faithfully, I came here to say, here's another opportunity to get involved in some litigation that would do some good for the school system, for the county, for the children in the school. That's the only reason why we're here. Nothing peculiar, odd, or anything like that about the school system.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, may I just intercede?
Okay.
Mr. Wells specifically and the litigation team as well, they have a proven track record of representing Prince George's County and other counties throughout the state and the country in these types of litigation. While it is the board's choice, I did want to just, I would be remiss if I did not speak to the reputation that Mr. Wells and his firm enjoyed throughout the state and the county.
Thank you so much. We have a motion on the floor. Ms. Adeline, could you call the roll, please? I thought we did it. Oh, nobody else there are no lights. Anybody else want to say anything? There are no lights.
I called for 6.1 through 6.5.
Right,
So
and I
are we
know
going to
that.
take 6.5 separately, or are you calling the roll for?
I was calling the roll for all of it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All of it. Ms. Adeline.
Ms. Adam Saffer? Aye. Ms. Booth-Strother?
Aye.
Mr. Briggs?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Dr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Asaya Frazier?
Aye.
Dr. Z. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Murray?
Aye.
Mr. Valentine?
Aye.
Ms. Walker?
Aye.
Ms. Mickens Murray?
Aye. Thank you. 7.0, we will go to the governance second reader, unfinished business. Colleagues, we will now consider items under governance second reader. Dr. Golsons, please introduce items 7.1 through 7.5.
Yep, I actually will introduce items 7.2 through 7.5 because the board member asked for 7.1 to be pulled separately.
Oh, we
Am I
didn't.
correct?
Did you ask for it? Because when I clarified, she did not say
I
that.
did, but
changed
it's
her
my
mind.
understanding we're going to go through each of them and vote on each of them separately.
No.
No.
We're not.
No.
Okay, well then, yes. Can you
Okay.
please
then
pull
we
that
pull
out.
that one, okay. Thank you.
Item 7.2 through 7.5 requires board approval of selection of pre-qualified vendors for move management services, request for renewal of Imagine Lincoln Public Charter School, request for renewal of Imagine Foundations at Morningside Public Charter School, and a request for renewal of Excel Academy Public Charter School.
Thank you. Colleagues, may I have a motion to approve items 7.2 through 7.5?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? And I have one, Mr. Fields, Board Member Fields.
Yes, I do have some concerns regarding the charter school renewals. When I looked at the site visit documentation, it was very troubling. And I think that even though we've come out of COVID, I think that we have some charter schools that are just not living up to the expectations. And when you see some of the findings that you have a school meeting standards at 34%, another school at 36%, I, in good conscience, if these items were voted separately, would vote no against these charter renewals. But I just want to be on record to say that I think if we are going to be a school district of high-performing schools, we have to hold all schools to that standard, including our charter schools. Charters serve a unique role, certainly, but they are still public schools. And I don't think we should lower our sights for our charter schools, because we certainly aren't lowering for our traditional public schools. Thank you.
Well, if the board, it's the pleasure of the board. If you would like for us to take these separately, we can. Is that the pleasure of the board? But right now, we're considering them all together. And Mr. Fields has already said that he would like for us to.
If we could separate them, I would appreciate that.
He wants to separate them, so I think we should separate them. Okay? Board, are we in agreement to separate them?
The question is for Robert's Rules of Order. It's been moved and seconded. We're in discussion. So the question of being able to go back and separate them after the fact is just, I would ask the parliamentarian to clarify.
Well, I was going to also ask the
Appreciate
maker of the motion if they wanted to withdraw it so that we could separate them. Oh, you're the maker of the motion, so you don't want to.
No, I mean, like, if it's the will of, I mean,
I think it's the will of
the colleague, I mean, I'm willing to do so, but I just want to make sure that's.
Yeah, the parliamentarian's not here this evening. I do believe that there could be what he would say is an amended motion, if it was the will of the board to amend the original motion to separate the request for the approval of the charter schools.
That's fine. I mean, so I guess I'll make a motion to accept the 7.3 through 7.5, the request for renewal of charter schools.
to take them separately.
Take them separately? Do you want each of them separately or all three of them? All
of
three
them.
Separately. That's fine.
Yes, okay, thank you. Is there a second? Is there a second? Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to take all of the charter schools separately as a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
But we need to vote on that motion to separate them.
Madam Chair, you may want to call the roll just so that it's clear.
That's what I'm trying to do so that it's really clear, because this impacts.
I just want to clarify, I'm the maker of the motion. I'm amending it. We don't have to
Right.
vote on it. We don't have to vote on it.
Okay.
I'm separating them. It's been seconded.
As long as
So
the board is
we'll take
okay with it.
7.2 right
Fine.
now.
And it's been moved and seconded, and he was the maker of the motion. Who seconded? Oh, Maddie. So I think it's okay.
I will defer to you, Madam Chair.
So we're back to discussion. And LaSalia Frazier. Yes.
I just basically was in agreement with my colleague that I was not in agreement to vote for all of them. So that's where the light was on.
Okay, that's fine. Vice Chair Walker.
Yes.
now that we have separated these, I had the privilege to be on the calls with the charter schools when we had the calls that were available to all board members, where we were able to ask specific questions regarding the 34%, et cetera. And so as we go through this, I just want to, I know all of our board members were not able to make those calls, and so you haven't heard from each of the schools. And I just want to just remind board members that as we make these calls to go forward or to deny these schools moving forward with their charter, that everyone has looked at the literature that has been sent to you, because we are each voting as though we have. And I'm not suggesting that we haven't, but I'm suggesting that some of these will likely get voted down. And so if that is the case, let's just make sure that we've actually seen them and we know what we're voting. That's it.
agree.
Thank you so much.
I agree with that. Board Member Harris?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I'd like to speak in favor of these charter schools. Like Vice Chair Walker, at a moment to sit down with each school independently as well as in a group. And like my colleague, Mr. Field said, I think it is important to hold them to a standard. We received a presentation probably 2 months ago from the charter office, Ms. Saunders and Dr. Gaines, where they compared actually how our charter schools were doing against certain schools within Prince George's County, almost based on subject matter. So you can see in some areas where charter schools are actually outperforming Prince George's County public schools. And then when you get the chance to sit down with them and hear leadership changes, when you hear the new strategies that they're implementing, when you hear what's going on inside the school, it really makes you, it really lifts the information off the page, I'd say. So I do echo the sentiments of Vice Chair Walker to say I adamantly suggest that the documents have been reviewed before we make these decisions that ultimately impact our communities and students. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Miller?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues, Board Member Walker and Board Member Harris. I also read the documents when they were first given to us at first reader. And then thank you, Dr. Golson and team, for setting up that time. I was fortunate because I was the only board member on the day that I attended, so I had extensive time with both charter school teams and did ask difficult questions, because I do agree, board member, that we do have to hold them to high standards as well. And they were able to articulate some of the changes that they're making and have made as a result of what we see. And so I would like to just echo that those sessions were very helpful to gain an understanding of what is actually happening, what the document said, and how they have used this information to make changes moving forward.
Board, are you done? Okay, thank you. Board Member Briggs.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor the point. I just want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues and just say that I've had the privilege as well of speaking to some of the charter school reps and reading more about the data. And I think that sometimes data can be misleading in that it doesn't really capture all of the impact that schools have on students and their outcomes. And so I know for some of the charter schools, their focus, especially on working with the community, working with families, is having a significant impact on students, their social emotional learning outcomes, as well as their sense of belonging. So I think that something I'd like to urge us to do is to, as everyone else said, to keep that in mind. The other thing I want to say is that the results are complicated, and I think for people who, whether you've previously were an educator or not, some of the populations of students that the charter schools are working with are high need populations, and I think that we do need to take that into account as well as how they're addressing those things. The other unique piece about charters is that they are able to implement unique strategies, and so transformative learning can look messy at times, and so I just really would love for us to take into context all of the different things. Data says one thing, but it doesn't really give the full story, and I think we should do our charter schools justice by speaking with them, talking with them if we feel a certain way about it. Thank you.
Okay, Board Member Adam Stafford.
Yes, I'd also just like to encourage us to support the renewal of these schools. I had the pleasure of visiting Excel Academy, which was located in my district, and I am sad that it's leaving. However, this school, when we talk about, some of the characteristics of quality schools and schools that, make students have that sense of belonging and that pride in themselves, in addition to that rigorous coursework, that's what I saw when I visited this school. The students were engaging in the IB curriculum, which, as you know, is a very rigorous curriculum. And they were doing math problems that I know some adults can't do. Fourth graders with no worksheets, having really robust, rich mathematics conversations. And I think I might have said this before. I really hope that as we go out and visit these schools, we really get an opportunity to experience the character of those schools. And so, I'm just asking colleagues to vote in support, and then also get an opportunity to get out and see some of these schools in action and the great work that they're doing on the ground.
Board Member, thank you. Board Member Valentine?
Thank you. I'll say, in the time I've been on the school board, we have never referred to ourselves as charter school authorizers. That's what we are. We authorize charter schools. This is a title. This is something that school districts, nonprofits around the country accept, and they go through training. And there's a process of understanding how to truly hold charter schools accountable. It's not like a traditional public school. It wasn't meant to be. They weren't founded in that way, and that's really not their purpose. But in Maryland, based on our state charter school law, in many ways we've tried to sort of traditionalize charter schools, which were not founded for that purpose. And so I guess my recommendation moving forward, just to be very constructive, is that as we're planning retreats, as we're training professional development for this board and boards around the state of Maryland, that we are very proactive about how we, again, accept the title of charter school authorizer, that we partner with the National Association of Charter School Authorizers and Correga Roush, who's the first African-American to ever leave that institution, and to really lean in on not simply going through the process right now of a phone call and maybe a report and maybe a visit, most likely not, of trying to really optimize the power of charter schools, but really accept that and really kind of take off our traditional school board hat and put on this charter school authorizer hat and say, particularly, what can we do, not just during the acceptance or this process of reauthorizing, but saying throughout the duration of the charter, how are we supporting schools like this? Parents in our district are demanding charter schools. If you look at the waiting list, people are saying they want this option. This is not me saying this, this is parents saying this. But at the same time, we have to hold them accountable. I appreciate my colleague, Brother Fields' point, and it's well taken. But I think together we could work better to ensure that we function properly, the schools function properly for the well-being of the students, and to fully optimize the purpose of the school and why this charter model was even created over 30 years ago.
Thank you. Board Member Boozer-Strother.
Thank you so much, Chair Mickens-Murray. I do have to respond to my colleague, Mr. Valentine. That is, this county and the parents are not in agreement. In some of our communities, there is not a demand for charter schools. In fact, there's a greater demand for the blueprint, focus on community schools, not to, in their words, divert funds to charter schools. So I do need to say, and I said it last time, there is a debate about charter schools. And then speaking of the three schools this evening, they've been with us for a long time. They've been recommended for renewal before. I voted for their renewal before. I would vote for their renewal this evening. But I do have to push back that there is still a debate about the role of charter schools in Prince George's County. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Board Member Boozer-Strother. Board Member Vice Chair Walker.
Second round, so this will be the end.
Oh, well, then I need to go for
well,
first
go
round.
Ahead, go ahead.
I was not into second round.
No worries.
Okay. I understand that we can approve the charter schools with some conditions. And what I would ask of the administration is there a reporting requirement, let's say yearly, that they can come back to this board? And I know that we can't, well, maybe there are some conditions if they don't meet some standard, but I need to know if you can just help me understand What criteria can we hold the charter schools to report back to this board before 3 years from now?
Typically, what we've done, and thank you for that question, Chair Mickens-Murray. In previous years, this is the time that we conduct the renewal. Does this mean that in the period of 3 years or more, as it has been in previous years as well, that there is no monitoring of the programs that exist? If it's such that you wish to change the processes as they have been previously, that would be the decision and recommendation from the board. What we've been doing over time is during the time of renewal, doing just what we're doing currently. Does this mean, though, that throughout that time period, we are not monitoring that progress? As we shared with you previously, we are monitoring consistently. If there's a new structure that you would like to impose, that certainly would be your recommendation.
Okay, thank you. But then I support what my colleague, Mr. Valentine said. Then maybe when we have our retreat, we can talk about charter schools. All right, thank you. Now, Vice Chair Walker.
Yes, I'll be short and sweet. On these calls that we had, I know Ms. Coley, Dr. Coley, I'm looking at you because you were on the calls as well. And I know that as a first-time board member this year, I was very surprised, as Mr. Fields, to see some of the percentages that we were able to see. And so as we talk through those openly and honestly and then demanded more accountability as we move forward, what I did ask on that call is what the accountability looks like. And in this yearly form, how are they getting back and talking about what their plans are? And then what does execution look like? How are we looking at their results? And so I left there feeling, so I guess what I'm asking for is, did you leave there feeling this too? So I left there feeling as though each one of the schools, because I attended all of them, that each one of the schools were very clear on where their gaps were, that their teams were very clear on at least what I was asking of them and what I would be expecting when they came back to the table. And then that you and your team, as far as when they report out to you all, I know that they have another reporting structure too, but that then they would be giving you the feedback, because these numbers, even though COVID happened, some of these numbers are extremely low. So I left there feeling like, yes, I will vote for you this time here, but I have expectations on how you show up throughout the course of this year and what accountability looks like. Right. So I felt comfortable, but do you feel comfortable?
I feel comfortable, and your conversation was very deliberate, and it was understanding from the operators themselves, and they spoke well around how they plan to change the data as it is currently. So your recollection of it and your understanding of it is the same as mine.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think for the colleagues who might not have had an opportunity to join those calls is that the operators were on a call. And I'll tell you is that they did feel some heat on the call. Now, I'll tell you that that was in a time, in a moment, but I do believe that they're very clear that we'll be looking at these very, very tough with accountability on our minds. So I just, hopefully that gives people a sense of comfort.
Board Member LaSalia Frazier.
I'm basically thinking of myself as a parent, and would I want to send my child to a school that's performing at 30%? The answer is a resounding no. So I would think that as charter schools, we need to do better. If they're charter schools and they're helping our students, then they need to do better. We have to have better expectations. And while I respect the opinion of my fellow board members, I just don't think that 34%, even if the data doesn't reflect the day-to-day operations, is justifiable.
Okay, Board Member Valentine.
Thank you. I'll be quick. I just want to make sure that we're using proper terminology. I mean, my colleague mentioned a debate over demand. I mean, I can't debate the waiting list. Their names on it, their addresses, people are signing up. And whether some districts don't support certain schools, that doesn't negate the fact that their parents demand. My second part is the term divert. This is the idea that charter schools are public schools. Right. And they're funded at a fraction of what other students are getting. And they don't offer transportation. And they have to pay for their own buildings. And so we can have a conversation about, and I just want us to talk about the facts. We're not diverting school money when these are taxpayers who are sending their kids to schools in our district. And so this word about diversion and taking money away, and these are terms that are used throughout the country, and it's not unique. But to the average parent who is saying, the traditional school down the street is not serving my child, and so I want a different option, and they, with both eyes open and investing their own money to transport their children to the school, say, I want this option, they're not diverting money from a school. They're actually investing in the district and staying, because they, in many cases, are not choosing charter schools. They're going somewhere else. They're choosing private schools or schools outside of our district. And so okay, we can have disagreements, and I'm here to have that debate. I do this for a living. But I just want to make sure we're using the right terminology. We're not diverting money. Those students are tax-paying Prince George's County residents who are going to a school that is being held accountable by elected officials who are elected and appointed. It is no different. And so I just want to be clear about that, and I don't want to leave that hanging out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Boozer Struthers, and we're in the second round.
It sounds like we're going to continue a work session. I guess I just have to say that, you know, these are lottery schools. You do not just choose and say, hey, I don't like Mount Rainier Elementary. I'm going to, you know, go here. You have to be lucky if that's your desire. So, you know, there are some structural issues around that, and you have to be informed. You have to know ahead of time. So if you don't know when your child is in 5th grade that you have an option with College Park Academy, which is the only school that significantly serves my district, you miss that opportunity. So when we look at the data, there's a lot of data to look at, and access is one of them. So I just want to say it's more complicated. And I think as, you know, as someone who, you know, I am an elected school board member. I have knocked on many doors. I hear from a broad range of constituents who let me know where they want me to focus when I come here. And it's very clearly on our traditional community schools. So that is some of that you are hearing from our communities and from representatives like myself. But I think if we're going to look at the data, we have to look at all the data. And honestly, I have high needs community schools. That is the data, that is the work where I want to put my time. And so I think we have to look at, we are going to be a fully elected board soon, and we are sent here to represent. So this will continue to be a debate based on our communities. And I just wanted to add that to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. CEO, Dr. Golson?
I asked to go last, right before the vote.
Oh, you want to go last?
Mhm.
Oh, okay, then we're back to Mr. Fields, Board Member Fields.
And since I started this, no, in all seriousness, so my underlying concern is that I want every child in this school district to walk into an excellent school. I don't care if it's a charter, I don't care if it's a traditional public school.
Right.
I am troubled by the data, and I understand that data does not always show everything. I do not have a child in the school district. My daughter is 25. But if I were a parent with a child in the school district, I would not want my child walking into a school with this type of data. And so for me, it's a very simple proposition. And yes, there could be improvement, but when you look at some of the issues in the reports, they didn't just occur this last year.
Right.
Some of these schools had issues in prior years. So I just want to be clear, because I understand the role of charters, and I do sort of hold them to a higher standard because we give them certain privileges to operate differently than public schools, with the expectations that with those privileges that we will see some positive results. I don't see that in the 3 schools that are before us this evening. And I say this without any disrespect to staff or students, because I know particularly students love their schools. Students aren't looking at data, they're looking at how they feel about the school building that they walk in. So I take this very seriously in my opposition to these renewals, because I know it can impact children. But I want a Prince George's County Public School District that it doesn't matter where a child is going to school, that every child has an excellent school.
Thank you. Board Member Briggs?
Yeah, I just want to be quick too, and it probably will be 3 minutes, but I want to echo what Board Member Valentine said, which is that I think we need to be thinking as authorizers. We need to really see the bigger impact, which is less of the individual school and more of the collective piece here. You know, if you are a superintendent for a day and there's a school that's failing in your district, and you know you have the opportunity to close that school down or to offer supports to that school, what's likely the better choice is to offer supports to that school, because there's a lot of impact that comes with closing school down, right? You displace families, kids. The kids have to go to a new school and relearn the teachers. There's a gap there, right? So those have significant impacts too. And so I think we got to think about the unintended consequences of our actions as board members in making decisions that may be rash. And I think that, I'm not saying that it is rash, but what I am saying is that if I were thinking less of as a parent and more of this is a school and there are plenty of kids here who are succeeding, you know, and 30% looks bad, how can we support the school, right? But what are the impacts if we close the school down? The other thing I'm going to say is someone mentioned community schools, and one of the charters that I spoke to offers a number of programs to families. They offer supports for finding workplaces, for resources when they come there. And so even though they aren't technically a community school, they offer so many supports that I think are very unique. And I think that, you know, again, we need to do charters justice and not just look at the kind of, you know, did you meet the 70% threshold for math or ELA. And I think look at the bigger picture and also take into account that teaching is hard, and that being an administrator is hard, and that, you know, it's not easy to get students that may have significant challenges to be at grade level. And so there's a lot of factors that as we're voting for this, I just love for us to take into account, because I think that they're very important factors and they are going to impact our communities in significant ways.
Thank you. Seeing no more lights, I would like to say for my second round, I know that if you close schools, there's an impact to the community, to the kids, to the families. They need to go to a school, and that takes planning. So my question is, if we close the schools today, that means I'm asking, does that mean come August, we need to identify another school for those that cohort of children?
The students will go back to their boundary schools.
They would go back to their boundary schools, and that's an automatic process that won't be a struggle for the parents. I mean, all the mechanisms are in place. We just notify the parents within 30 days, they can put their kids back in the boundary schools. I'm asking.
What I'm saying is that any student that is currently enrolled in a charter school, if they were not attending that charter school, if a parent chose to do something elsewhere, that's one thing.
Right.
But otherwise, they would attend the school that resides within their home, within their dwelling.
Okay, and I'm understanding that. So to close 3 schools, we're talking about, I'm thinking over 1,000 students if we decided to do that tonight. And those, if the parents didn't have another place for those students to go, it's somewhere within our boundaries in those schools. But what I'm asking is it a complicated process for the parents to make that happen? Or is it like Judy has a child and just go to the site and sign my student up for that school?
I can't speak to what it would be like and what that process would entail for each parent, but we never talked about closing. We talked about renewing.
So we don't know
we're
about the
asking
chaos.
about the renewal process, and based upon the recommendations that we've provided, based upon the data that has been collected, then we provided our information, and ultimately the board decides as to what that will do.
I appreciate that.
Receiving of it or not.
Okay. Mr. Harris, this is your second round. Board Member Boozer Struthers, if we go to a third round, the board has to agree. So we would have to vote for that. Okay, then thank you.
Yeah, I didn't mean to press my light, but I'll speak shortly, or briefly. So I would like to echo the sentiments that there are impacts, there are budgetary impacts, there's impacts of transportation, class sizes, stress on teachers, individual curriculum time, things of that nature. So there are impacts that the board might not realize sitting here today that will impact our students.
Thank you. Seeing no more lights, Dr. Cosi. Oh, wait. No, we have to vote to do a third round. Do you want us to take that vote? For you to do a third round? Okay, board members, someone needs to make a motion that we do a third round.
I just wanted to make 2 comments before you call the vote.
Okay.
The first one is around the closure. If you're going to vote for closure, I do not recommend that it goes into effect for next school year. There are impacts. We would have to figure out transportation. We'd have to transfer teachers back to our boundary schools, et cetera. That requires a lot of work, so I would not recommend it for next year. It would have to be for the year after.
Okay.
And then the second part that I wanted to share is that 4 years ago, the chair, Dr. Alvin Thornton, said to all board members during a very similar conversation that as board members, you all needed to come together in a retreat and talk through your philosophical beliefs about charter schools, and then to create a board plan around how to review, monitor, and decide and make determinations around the continuation of charter schools. And so I've said this multiple times, but now I'm going to publicly say it.
Okay.
I strongly encourage this board to do just that. Because if not, every 3 years, we will be at this dais having the same conversation. And community input should be a part of that conversation.
That's what I was thinking.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So do you still want me to entertain the thought of another round? You still want the board to vote? So are you good?
Yeah, before we vote, I do have something. I would love to.
Okay. Vice Chair Walker.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that.
But we're taking them one at a time.
I'm sorry?
We're doing them one at a time. We're doing the motions one at a time. But go ahead. Oh, go ahead. I don't think so. You're the only one I think that wants to speak. Because he's only had one.
Okay, look, this is just really quickly. I just wanted to just note, we're throwing around this 34% number, but you know, everybody knows that that is only one subset of all of the criteria that's there. So I know that I think all of us that are sitting around this table want the same goal, for each of our students to be able to walk into a school in Prince George's County and get the best education possible. We all agree with that. I just, as we talk about 34%, that is one line on multiple criteria. So I'm not advocating for or against a particular school, but I know if I look at the school that even my son attends, I'm not happy with some of the scores that he has that are at his school as well. And so as we go and we vote on these, I just want to make sure that as we populate this 34% number, that we know it is a line item inside of the multiple things. And then there was a school, which I believe is Excel, I'm going to look it up right now, that actually had no red on their entire population of their criteria. They did have some yellows, and they talked to how they were going to get those to greens, but there weren't any reds on theirs, actually.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I know this is the second round. Board Member Jackson. Oh, okay, Board Member Jackson. First round and second if you want to keep going.
Yeah, I'll be short. I got a question for Dr. Golson. I just wanted to know more about, I've only been here for, it's my first year, but more about the audit function around charter schools. Like, what mechanisms do we have in place, or what personnel do we have in place as far as like, the quality of education, how we're following up, how they're meeting their requirements, just things of that nature. What type of body do we have around that?
So I'm going to have the charter school office respond to that. But I also want to just remind our board members that we did a board work session in March around that specific topic, because I wanted to make sure everyone was knowledgeable before we came to the table today for the board vote. But I'm going to have Ms. Saunders and Dr. Gaines share, who've done an amazing job of working with our charters.
went. I mean, I didn't go to the one you went.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Saunders, Instructional Director of Charter Schools, and you had asked specifically about how the schools were being monitored. Could you repeat that for me, your question? Oh, that was the question. Okay, you had asked specifically about how the schools are being monitored. So in the public charter school office as instructional director, I'm also the principal supervisor, which means that at the beginning of the year, the operator and I meet with every school leader and we actually do goal setting. The operator has some school-specific goals. I have some goals around leadership. We talk it through, we finalize that document, and then we do visits. So it's almost like two hats. Sometimes when we're visiting the school, we're visiting it as leadership coach and principal supervisor. But then there are also times when we're visiting as acting as the authorizer, and we kind of wear both hats. So for the schools that were up for renewal this year, it was almost like an 8-month process. It started off with the kickoff, then we had the site visit and performance review. And in that site visit and performance review, we have an external evaluator that we use, 10 Square. They met with teachers and observed classrooms. They met with students. They had parent focus groups. They also met with the operator and the charter school boards and asked them some pretty rigorous questions to come up with these ratings. In between those times, Dr. Gaines and I also visit schools, and we work with school leadership teams, we work with leadership, we communicate with our operators, and they are here tonight as well, if you have questions for them, and we provide that support. And in the public school charter office, we truly do believe that we are the support, but we're not the lead, because they do have the responsibility. They have the responsibility to use that curriculum. They have the responsibility to meet the state requirements for achievement, and they have responsibility to have a robust educational program. We also have our principals and leadership teams, when they are invited, participate in what we call school stat. And that is a quarterly overview of all the assessment data. That can be in-house assessment data. Different charter school operators have different assessments that they take, but we've talked about those since the beginning of the year. We track their growth, and we also talk to them about the action plans that they've developed. Since there are two operators here, they also can speak specifically about what they do to monitor the progress of the school. I'm trying to think the other supports.
And then I was just going to add that there's also, excuse me, with the 3-year renewal, they will also do an action plan, and that will also help us monitor their progress. And so that was also noted.
Board members, any more questions? Anybody?
Madam Chair, just for clarification, we have not made a motion on.
I know, we're going to do one at a time.
And so since we're going to go one at a time, I make a motion that we take 7.1, just so we can stay in order, and then go one by one. Otherwise, we'll be going backwards. So if it pleases the group, I'll just make a motion to accept 7.1, contract for acceleration academies.
All right, board members, there's the motion, second, is there a second? The motion is to accept 7.
Now I'm just going in order. I'm going in order because we agreed to take them separately. We were going to jump ahead to 7.3 apparently, and we don't have to. If we're going to take them separately, we can just go to 7.1, go to Acceleration Academy. If you want to discuss it, we can. But otherwise, we can take a motion on that so we can move forward in order of the agenda.
Is your motion for 3-year term or 1-year term?
No.
My motion is for 7.1, contract to approval Acceleration Academies, not of the charter school.
Yeah. So for clarity, for clarity, one more time. Is your motion for 7.1 and 7.2 or just 7.1?
7.1.
Okay.
7.1.
Now, is there a second for 7.1?
Per the request of the board.
Because I thought that the motion was to separate 7.1.
He amended his motion. Right, so we were just discussing it, and then we were going to take each school by itself. We were going to take each one by itself. So we're starting with 7.1, so we can move on. Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to approve, Board Member Valentine's, your motion is to approve 7.1? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and properly seconded to accept, to approve 7.1, contract approval of Acceleration Academies LLC. Are we ready for the vote? Because we've had a lot of discussion. 7.1. We're only voting on 7.1 now. And you want to discuss 7.1? Okay, 7.1, open for discussion. Board Member Adam Stafford, followed by Board Member Z. Miller. I'm sorry. Oh, but then we'll turn your light off.
Okay.
Board Member Adam Stafford.
I'd like to just first say thank you so much to Dr. Golson and her team for providing responses to the questions that I asked regarding the Acceleration Academies. And I'm really happy just to see this commitment to engaging students that that are considered at promise, often termed as at risk, but these are our students that are often facing the biggest challenges. So I have a few questions around the Acceleration Academies, and I'm actually, I'll start with this, and then I believe some of my other colleagues have questions as well. I'd like to know more about how this company was selected. As you know, over the past several years, myself and other board members have put forward amendments to work with local companies that do some of this similar work. And I think this company seems to be based in, or they do work primarily in the South or in Florida and South Carolina. And so I'd like to know more about, why they were selected and what's their track record here in this region. Have other proposals been brought in? Thinking about, what is the net total that we would gain from the reclamation of these students? So just for the public's sake, for the clarity, this organization is stating that they will go and reclaim students that have dropped out and provide them with a customized learning plan to support them in graduation. Am I right in that characterization? Would you say that, Dr. Coy? Okay. And so, they are serving similar population to our alternative schools that have undergone a redesign. But my question is, what is the net total that we would gain for the reclamation of these students? And, personally, I feel that $4.5 million is excessive. And, I think that to be reasonable, this is their first, from what I'm seeing, their first contract here with our school district. I would rather see a smaller pilot that's manageable, that they could actually do maybe 100 students, because I'm not necessarily seeing that in all of the data that I read through, that they've worked with a district of our size, and maybe I'm wrong in that, but you can provide more information here. But, I'm just wanting to know if you can talk a little bit more about how this company was selected, their track record for actually reclaiming these students, if they're, if they have, the possibility of this becoming more of a pilot. I think 300 students, that's a lot of students for them to try to reclaim in 1 year. And I need to understand a little bit more about this. So those are some of my questions.
Okay, excuse me, before you answer. Board Member Adam Stafford, we were given an opportunity to give the administration the questions. And I know you gave them questions. These are additional questions that you had that you did not provide to the staff?
No. So in this moment, I'm trying to have a more robust discussion about this particular contract because I feel as though the amount is excessive and I don't understand how we arrived with this particular company. And I'm also concerned about their ability to do the scope of this work, given that they're not based in this region. And there are I want to know what other alternatives do we have to reclaim these students and the cost benefit to us.
Okay, I was curious about if you thought of these questions like today or because the 27th of
You know-
April was
You
when
know,
we started.
Chair Murray, sometimes I do think of questions while I'm here. And that's
Okay,
why
then
we
that's
have
fine.
discussions.
That's-
And that's why
that's
we're
all I
having
wanna
this
know, because
discussion,
we
you know.
gave the
But I
administration
did
time.
preemptively give questions that led us here today, which generated more questions that I
Okay,
think other
that's
board members
fine.
have as
I just
well.
wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
For the public. Okay. Who is entertaining the question?
I'd like to begin by sharing that Dr. Merrill and other members from the Prince George's County team have actually gone to some of the sites. With respect to your question around the how, you know, we saw the data, we saw reports around this school and this program within itself and what it had to offer for students. We here in Prince George's County need some help. We need some help finding those students that have disengaged. And this program seemed to offer for us what we were seeking. Now, we recognize that there are videos, as we shared with you, the responses to your questions that we've shared in advance as well, to kind of give you a scope of what the program entails. But more importantly, just as that occurs, Dr. Merrill and team members actually visited the sites to see if what's on paper was actually operative when they went to visit in those sites. So I will defer to her at this point. But what we do, I want to reiterate, we need help on finding some of our disengaged students who have dropped out. We need help in bringing them back and ensuring that they're meeting academic success. So that's the main why. And the data is real. I know you talk about 100, and we specified, and we're speaking about 300, but we have over 1,000 students that are out there that we need to go and find them. So in being quite candid with you, this is a program that we are believing will get us to a point of bringing some of our former students back to receiving the education that they're certainly deserving of. So Dr. Marrow, who's the Associate Superintendent of Area 3, no stranger to many, she can provide you with some context specific to what was seen and what the value add that we see could be for our Prince George's County students.
And so when we looked at the Acceleration Academy, one of the things we found is that this is in addition to our non-traditional strategies and programs that we're implementing. We have not strategically focused on our students that have dropped out of Prince George's County in many years. We definitely have never gone after that population specifically. And so one of the things we found with Acceleration Academy is they're able to use geo-mapping to actually go out and locate our students and go find them, which we don't have the manpower to do or the facilities. And when we visited the program, it's a very non-traditional, innovative setting, which does not look like the four walls or the walls of a school. It's a setting where we spoke to young adults who actually told us about their experience with the Acceleration Academy. They actually showed us. We experienced young adults who said, I walked in here and saw people who cared about me, who showed me the difference in my life. I was on drugs and things of that nature, and they took me in. And then they have the flexibility to go to school from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And so with that flexibility, they actually find a building using that geo-mapping where our students can actually get to based on the needs of our population. So when they look at our data, it's around, they find a location within the county that's not necessarily a school building. It's a non-traditional setting, which really impacts the students that are young adults who say, I don't want to be in a school building. I work, I have children, and things of that nature. And so I want to be treated as an adult, and I want something innovative and different from the regular traditional school. So that's one of the major factors, several of the factors that brought our attention to the Acceleration Academy. And while they're not in this region, they're in 17 sites, and 7 states and 16 sites around the country, and many that look just like us, from Gwinnett County to Miami-Dade, and where we visited in Charleston, South Carolina. So much of the population is just like what we serve here in Prince George's County Public Schools.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Seeing no other, okay, I got 2 lights. Board Member LaSalle.
I do have a question in terms of how the money is going to be allotted to the contract. Are there any safeguards in place for, as we move along? This is a 3-year contract, and it sounds like they're going to get the money up front. Am I wrong in that?
So I'm going to defer to Ms. Howe on the funding question.
Good evening. Thank you for that question. So the money is being provided to them on a per-student basis, and so it's not a flat fee contract. The money is not provided up front. As they go through the success of this program in locating the students, engaging the students, and getting them across that finish line, there's going to be ongoing monitoring on a monthly basis, and there are certain criteria that they have to meet, which they can speak more to in terms of those benchmarks throughout the month. And then based off of those students that are in the program, they will be billed on a monthly basis just for the students that are in the program. So if it's 50 students, they get billed for 50 students. If it's 300, it's 300. And that's what we ultimately want, to be able to re-engage and have this program success that will result in our students getting across the finish line.
And if I can add to that, it's also revenue sharing. So we're actually gaining because these are students that we're currently not being funded for. And so this will allow to bring funding back to Prince George's County. And so as they bring in students, they actually keep a portion and we gain a portion back. So this is funding that we currently do not have because these students are not enrolled in our school system.
And how much are we paying per student for them to find them? Just kind of remind me.
The funding is going to be similar to what's outlined for the state of Maryland in the blueprint. So the same funding that we receive for our students, there's a certain amount for foundation, for special education, for ESOL, that same per pupil amount, which is different for each year, and it's already in the legislation for the next 3 years, which is the term of this contract, they will receive that exact same amount based off of the terms of the contract. So there's no markup or anything along those lines. It's defined by what's in our legislation. And there's also criteria in the contract that if there happens to be any legislative changes to the out years, because that could always happen, then the funding in our contract with Acceleration Academy would mirror what changes go through the legislative process. So it's all tied to the same funding that we receive for our students in our traditional buildings. The same funding would be provided in the same manner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Briggs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to just kind of hammer in on that point. I know there were some concerns about the $4.5 million, and when I was reading through the document on board docs, it reads like you were just saying, which is that essentially it's based on the amount of students. If they think that there maybe is 300 students that exist for this program, but if it's 50, then it's 50. And then it says in here that it is 100% total of the weighted state, federal, and local monitors of alternatives. So that's based on whatever the costs are for the alternative program. That's the equivalent of what we'd be paying for that program, essentially. So this $4.5 million is a set aside, and we're drawing down those dollars based on the need. Okay. Thank you.
Seeing no more lights, the motion is on the floor to approve 7.1 contract approval.
Madam Chair, I believe there's a second round question.
There were no lights, but okay, now there is a light. Thank you. Board Member Adam Stafford.
Thank you for that explanation. As you all know, this has been a focus of mine since I've been on the board with this particular population. So again, I am really happy that we are discussing this. I guess, is it possible that you could provide us with some type of table for the revenue that we're projecting, the net revenue that we'll be projecting based on the per pupil cost, so that we could have an understanding? Additionally, are you saying that they would not have a physical location until they locate the students, or that they would find that location as they find students? Could you provide more detail about that? And again, I asked about, how did we arrive at this particular company? Because we've talked about different alternatives over the years, thinking about, for example, like a lot of what you stated that the students mentioned when you met them in other places, those were some of the same sentiments that a lot of students had when they came here regarding community-based classroom. And so, I'm just trying to understand, what process
God bless you.
happened in order for us to select this particular company. And so if you could possibly give some answers to those questions, and I have a few more as well.
Did they compete it?
Dr. Merrill will share with you now the differences. I think one of the questions that you've raised, you spoke to many of the students coming here when we were talking about CBC and expressing some of the same sentiments as was described by Dr. Merrill. She can apprise you to share with you now exactly, and I think I've done this, and I think we provided, so I don't mean to be redundant, but it is an experience for students that are not, we don't know where they are. So these are students that were formerly here. CBC students were enrolled in that building.
I think I understand that from the
Okay,
chart,
okay.
Mike. Well, and just thinking about how did we arrive at this company? That's the question, because I'm wondering why could we not use these resources with our own local program that seem to be doing well to then empower and build capacity to do this work here. And I know that a couple of years ago, we had the GEARS grant that did work with going out and reclaiming students.
We still have GEARS grant.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand how we came to this company, and I do hear what you're saying, and I do recognize the table that you did provide.
So where we are as a county now, we just don't have the staff and the ability to go out and do that. And I think it was about 2 years ago when the high school, when the Area 3 office first heard of them. And then they also were reintroduced to us by representatives from the National School Board Association. But once again, we don't have the staff. As we shared before, we have vacancies in several areas, and we want to be able to reclaim those students.
I'd like to go ahead and call for the vote on 7.1. How do you feel? You good?
You good?
For your vote, be able to vote on this?
And we'll do a voice vote.
Well, I'm just asking if we can table this so that we can, I know that we have more questions. I was going to ask to make a motion to amend it so that we could table for an upcoming meeting to get more answers to some of these questions.
No, I think that this is a second reader. I think that we've had ample time to ask all of our questions, and I think the board members have, I believe, enough information to make a decision tonight. So we will go to Dr. Z. Miller. Okay. Yes. Harris, Board Member Harris.
One question, is there any language in the contract around discontinuing services if it's not impactful?
We actually have that in all of our contracts.
Correct, but what's the language within this one? Since it's 3 years.
I don't have it in front of me, but we have it in
It's
every
like-
contract.
Is it standard language?
Yes.
It's boilerplate, I guess, boilerplate.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. No other discussion. Ms. Adeline, please call the roll. I thought it was seconded. There was a motion on the floor to approve contract approval for Acceleration Academies, LLC, made by Mr. Valentine. Who seconded? Oh,
Ms. Lolita did.
Ms. Boozer, oh, you did, okay. Thank you, so call for the vote.
I wanted to make a motion to amend
Well, we
this
need-
item to table it for a future meeting to
We
discuss.
need, I think we need to vote on this motion first.
Well, if there is a second for the motion to amend, or if the maker of the motion accepts it.
There is no second.
I had a
Second motion to table.
You second the motion to table it? Then it's tabled from what I understand. No?
You have to
Oh,
vote
we
on
need
it.
to vote on the
Yes,
table. Okay,
yes.
then. There's a motion on the floor to table the vote for 7-1 contract approval for Acceleration Academics LLC. Any discussion? I see two. Mr. Briggs.
Yeah, I think we should just vote, but I was going to say, I actually had this question before. If we don't approve this LLC, then, and we disapprove, then that means that those students, I guess I'm asking the administration, that means those students aren't receiving services, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Jackson, Board Member Jackson.
Yeah, I did want to say that Dr. Golson pointed out something earlier about us having a strategy on how we approach charter schools as a whole. Maybe it may pay dividends to, come together as a board, talk about our overall strategy on how we're going to approach charter schools in general, and then make a decision on renewing the contracts. That's just.
Okay, this is.
I'm sorry.
This is not about charter school.
Sorry,
This
yeah,
is
it's not
the
about charter
first
school.
one, 7.1. It's about a contract.
Okay.
Trying to, okay, now the motion on the floor is the table. So, but I have lights. So. Harris. Your light was on. Okay, and Board Member Zipporah Miller? Okay. So call for the vote. Ms. Adeline, please call the roll to table 7.1 contract approval for Acceleration Academies LLC. That's the vote, guys. Understand what the vote is.
Mrs. Adams Stafford?
Aye.
Ms. Booth Estrada?
No.
Mr. Briggs?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
No.
Mr. Saron Luis? No. Dr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Asaya Frazier?
Aye.
Dr. Zipporah Miller?
No.
Mr. Murray?
Aye.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes, vote to table.
Ms. Walker?
No, no.
Ms. Mickens-Murray?
No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6 ayes,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
7 noes, and 1 absent.
Can we be clear? Oh,
fails.
go ahead. It didn't fail. It passed.
No, it didn't.
Yeah,
It
they
was
won.
5, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ayes. You need 7, you need 8, right?
It just, yeah. We moving forward.
Hmm?
We're moving forward. You're right. Sorry, I got confused on the ayes and the nays. Sorry, you're right.
Lord have mercy, let me just. That motion failed, right? Thank you, say it loud. The motion failed. Okay.
The
All right.
chair has to confirm that it failed. I could only provide the numbers. The chair confirms if it failed or
Okay,
passed.
then I did, okay, right, okay. So the motion fails.
Yes.
Now
Thank
we're
you.
back to the original motion that 7.1 contract approval for Acceleration Academies LLC to approve. Ms. Adeline, call the vote.
Mrs. Adams Stafford?
Abstain.
Ms. Booth Estrada?
Aye.
Mr. Briggs?
Abstain.
Mr. Saron Luis?
I can't vote on this item.
Oh, but it's second reader. Mr. Fields? Dr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mrs. Asaya Frazier?
Abstain.
Dr. Z. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Murray?
Abstain.
Mr. Valentine?
Aye.
Ms. Walker?
Aye.
Mrs. Mickens-Murray?
Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The motion passes. Yeah, I mean, you tell me to count, but I counted.
Sorry, 8 ayes,
Yes,
0 noes, 4 absentees.
thank you. Now, back to our second, 7.2.
Real quick, does this go into effect? Dr. Coley, can you advise when this goes into effect, please?
Now that we've all voted on it, and
Yes.
we have a contract that they and we will agree upon.
Yes.
And from there, they will begin to start looking at a site in hopes that we can begin as soon as possible.
And thank you. And when should we expect an update? I know that stuff has to get in, but when should we expect an update back, please?
We will provide an update. You said when?
I
We'll
did. You can do a
she said
quarter.
we
A
will.
quarter would be great.
First, yes, we will.
Okay.
Because actually, what they have committed to doing is that each quarter, they will be providing us data reports.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, colleagues, may I have a motion on 7.2, selection of pre-qualified vendors for move management services, RFP number PUR 008-2,
So moved.
to approve?
To approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve 7.2. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Motion passes. Okay, now we get to our charter schools. 7.3, request for renewal of Imagine Lincoln Public Charter School. Colleagues, may I have a motion for 7.3?
Motion to approve
I mean-
7.3.
No, this is 7.3. The last one was 7.2. This is 7.3.
That's
Okay,
what I
thank
said.
you.
Second.
Okay, may I have a motion for 7.3?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Do I need to call the roll? I mean, any discussion? I think we've had a robust discussion.
We've beat a dead horse, but I do have one thing.
Oh,
So I-
really?
Don't,
Vice
please,
Chair.
no, I know, please, come on, you guys, this is public, and I just have a question, please, just. thank you.
Okay,
Please
it's open
entertain me.
for
I know,
discussion. Vice
I'm-
Chair
yeah, it's
Walker.
gonna be so quick. Given all of the amazing discussion that's happening right now around accountability, listen, you don't have to answer now, but my hope is that, should this move forward, that these schools will give us accountability on a regular basis. That's all I wanted to say. That's it. Thank
Okay, I
you.
appreciate that.
No, don't appreciate it now.
All right, do I need to call the roll, board members? Okay, Ms. Adeline, please call the roll. 7.3.
Mrs. Adam Safford? Aye. Ms. Booth Schroeder?
Aye.
Mr. Briggs?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
No.
Dr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Astaire Frazier?
Aye.
Dr. Z. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Murray?
Aye.
Mr. Valentine? Ms. Walker?
Yeah, aye.
Mrs. McIntyre?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Colleagues, may I have a motion for 7.4?
Motion to approve 7.4.
Almost support 7.4, moving right along here. Request for renewal of Imagine Foundations at Morningside Public Charter School.
Motion to approve 7.4.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Adeline, please call the roll.
Mrs. Adam Safford?
Aye.
Ms. Booth Schroeder?
Aye.
Mr. Briggs?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
No.
Dr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Astaire Frazier?
No.
Dr. Z. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Murray?
Aye.
Mr. Valentine? Ms. Walker?
Aye.
Mrs. Vickers-Murray?
Aye.
10
10 ayes.
yeses.
And 2
And
noes.
2 noes.
The motion carries. And finally, may I have a motion, colleagues, for 7.5, request to renewal of Excel Academy Public Charter Schools.
Motion to approve
Second.
7.5.
It's seconded? Anybody second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the request for renewal of Excel Academy Public Charter Schools. Any discussion? Ms. Adeline, please call the roll.
Aye. Mrs. Adams Sadowit.
Aye.
Mrs. Booth Estrada.
Aye.
Mr. Briggs.
Aye.
Mr. Fields.
No.
Dr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Jackson.
Aye.
Mrs. Lucia Frazier.
Aye.
Dr. Z. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Murray.
Aye.
Mr. Valentine. Ms. Walker.
Yes, aye.
Mrs. Vickers Murray.
Aye.
11 yeses, 1 no.
The motion carries. Thank you. Let me find out where I am. Seven point 11, Board of Education meeting calendar.
7.6 through
Oh, I'm in
7:11.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Thank you guys for your help. 7.6, new policy. Students, are you doing that? Okay, so I yield the floor to Chair Saron Ruiz. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I start, I did want to firstly congratulate the renewal of the charter schools. Secondly, I know earlier in the report it wasn't mentioned, but the next policy and governance meeting is this Tuesday, May 16th at 5 p.m. I encourage the public to attend, watch the meeting, sign up to speak if you'd like. I urge you to come speak, but a request can only go so far. But moving along, 7.6, Board of Education on April 27, 2023, voted and approved the following revised policies as first reader. That is a new policy for student sunscreen use, Policy 0121, People First Language, Policy 5118.4, Tuition Waivers for Summer School, rescission of that policy, Policy 5122, Interscholastic Athletics and Extracurricular Activities, and Policy 5162.1, Do Not Resuscitate Order. So on behalf of the Policy and Governance Committee, I move that the following policies be recommended for advanced consideration as second reader.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that policy 7.6 through 7.10 be advanced as a second reader. All those any discussion? Okay, I need to see it.
That's me.
Board Member Booth Estrada.
Yeah, thanks. I would just like to ask Dr. Goldson to address 7.8, the tuition waivers for summer school, so that the public does not have any confusion about why we're making this decision.
For the past, I think now we're on year 3 for our summer school. We are grateful that it has been free for students K through 12. Prior to the pandemic, we were only offering it for credit recovery. For our secondary students, we're now using it for acceleration and for credit recovery. So we're just grateful that it's now rolled in and free for our students. So that's why it's been rescinded.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any more discussion, board members? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Go ahead.
Before we move along, I do want to provide an update on certain bills that the Policy and Governance Committee was tracking in the Maryland legislative session. Sine Die, as some of you may know, was on April 10th, 2023, marking the 30-day period for Governor Wes Moore to sign or veto passed bills. The 30-day period, I believe, has come to its conclusion. And so 3 bills that the committee specifically tracked relating to PGCPS was HB 0432, 0437, and 1079. House Bill 0432, Prince George's County Chief Executive Officer Public School System, alterations to the title and search committee requirements, also known as PG 50323, did not pass. House Bill 0437, Prince George's County Public Schools alterations to the title of Chief Executive Officer and establishment of Office of Integrity and Compliance did pass. It will go into effect July 1st, 2023, change the title of CEO to County Superintendent, establish the Office of Integrity and Compliance and PGCPS to evaluate, examine, investigate, report on, and make recommendations on certain issues related to PGCPS, and require the County Council to appoint an Integrity and Compliance Officer. Secondly, House Bill 1079, Prince George's County Board of Education and School System revisions did pass as well. It has two effective dates, July 1st, 2023 and July 1st, 2024 for other items within the bill. It is a fairly large bill, but it alters the duties and responsibilities of the Prince George's County Board of Education and certain officers of the board. It alters the voting authority for the student member of the board. It requires the county board to retain counsel and pay certain counsel fees and expenses incurred for defending a member in litigation involving a member's service in the member's official capacity on the county board under certain circumstances, and alters certain procedures for the election of the student member of the county board, etc. That
Thank you
concludes my
so
update.
much, and thank you to your committee for monitoring those bills on behalf of the Prince George's County School System. So next we have, colleagues, I'd like to introduce the Board of Education's meeting calendar for school year 2023-24. May I have a motion to accept 7.11, our calendar?
Motion to accept
Is there a second?
7.11.
Is there any is it been moved and seconded?
Second.
She said motion to accept our calendar, board calendar. I know it's a long night. Is there any discussion? Seeing none.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
We need to know who the second was.
Oh, okay, thank you. There is no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 All nays, it's been a long. All opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion carries. New business. Dr. Golson, please introduce item 8.1. 8.1 is fiscal year 27 Educational Facilities Master Plan.
Item 8.1 requires board approval as a first reader.
Since we don't discuss
we don't
first
have-
readings.
You're right.
No, we
Yeah.
discuss second readings. and-
But if you have questions, please
Go
feel
ahead.
free to submit them to us, and we'll have them ready for you prior to the second reader.
Thank you. So, board, I need a motion to accept the fiscal year 24 Educational Facilities Master Plan as a first reader.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Mr. Jackson moved it, and Mr. Harris seconded it. Any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. There are no if any items are okay, there are no non-consent items. Follow-up items. Follow-ups from March 23rd, 2023 and April 27th, 2023. Board meetings have been posted on board docs for your review. Now may I have a motion to confirm actions taken in executive session?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept motions taken in executive session. And the motion was to receive a report from the CEO to discuss approved student appeals, to discuss approved legal matters, to discuss approved personnel actions, to receive a report from internal audits, to receive legal advice. And it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. Please, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
At 10:29. It has been moved and properly second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.